Hi. How's everybody doing? I can't see chats yet because still don't like our new setup. Sorry for being late, but I guess when we're always late, we're on time. Which is weird because in my normal day-to-day life, I hate late. I'm never late. I don't like late. I don't appreciate late. But when it comes to this, something always keeps happening. It's weird. Or am I just giving you guys excuses? Probably a bit of both. Okay, let me just see if I bring up the chats. This is an informal whatever stream, so does it matter? I don't know if it matters. Doesn't matter? I don't think it matters. All right, guys, I could see the chats now. What's going down? Antonio Slash is in the house. What's up, sir? Daniel is in the house. What's up, sir? Germanus, hola. What's going down, man? And Mela, hello. Welcome to whatever this is going to be. Don't think I'm going to be going very long, and we're probably going to put this in members only after it's done. All right. I'm going to have a sip of this. G-Bar Town? What happened? We got questions on G-Bar Town? Is that what's happening? Germanus is G-Bar Town. Brody is officially in the house. What's up, man? It's going to be a whatever's. Quick question. Everybody out there, that whoever's listening, who's ever in the chats, doing whatever, what's up, Punchy? Quick question. Anybody out there familiar? I mean, you should be. I mean, most people probably are. The Dunning-Kruger effect. Anyone familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect? I'm not sure if I'm going to get into that exactly, but maybe. Kat Rodriguez. That's a new person. Hello. Welcome. Sobs. Oh. And Manny just told me who Kat Rodriguez is. Welcome. Daniel is aware of it. Punchy's aware of it. Yeah. What's going down? See, I'm just going to keep repeating that. What's going down in G-Bar Town? We got Stevie in the house for this random Jabberfest. So welcome, Kat, to the chats. People here are pretty cool. You can ask questions. You can make statements. You can do whatever you want for the most part. Spurging out is probably not encouraged, but no one tends to spurg out in our chats. I guess maybe I spurg out. I don't know. Are my jabbers spurging? Could be. I don't think so. I wouldn't say that that's what... Jabbering is a thing all on its own. Nor positive nor negative. But I think spurging is a totally different beast. Agua mineral and some fresca. Perfect combo. Right? Now, is this or isn't this... It's just a color. It just describes a color in Spanish. That's all it is. Latin languages in general. Greek too. That's where it comes from. Moldy's a spurg. He could be more of a troll, I would say. A righteous troll. He trolls for righteousness. I would say that's how I would describe Moldy, with those apples all molded and stuff. All right. So last Friday, I was on Counterflow with Buck Johnson, our dear brother, and I spoke about Hermeticism. It was I guess the second time I was on there talking about Hermeticism. I'm seeing people throwing things in the chats. I'll comment on that. Then I'll get back to my ramble. Brody is saying, Canada's a case study in the Dunning-Kruger, especially when it comes to morals and ethics. Mm-hmm. The amount of Greenland, Mexico flags up beside Canadian flags and Ukrainian flags upside down American flags is every second block. You know what? Then maybe we will talk about it because I think... Okay, so here we go. So last Friday, I was on Counterflow and we talked about Hermeticism with Buck. I took a different approach than I did the first time, obviously because the first time I was on there, I kind of broke down things in detail that I didn't want to kind of repeat the same thing. And I wanted to really make a case for the fact that Hermes Trismegistus, or Thoth, or all three together, or whatever which way you want to break that up. If you are a follower of the of Hermeticism, the Hermetic metaphysics and all that, or really any occult, that kind of the majority of occultism has its roots deeply immersed in Hermeticism. That's kind of undeniable. Many even older sources will confirm this, from the Theosophical Society to Manly P. Hall, even predating all of that, the Rosicrucians, and you can go pretty far back, and you can confirm that there is a definite interconnection between the two. But let's see. What I wanted to do was present a case last week that Hermes, Thoth, or Hermes Trismegistus, any which way you want to cut it up, were and are, or he is, let's say he is, I don't even know what terminology to use. He was either a fallen angel or definitely influenced by a fallen angel. And I go into detail as to why I think that, and I read from source documents, also secondary documents and source documents as to why I believe that to be the case. I think it's pretty clear. Even if you read, a historian of the occult, I would call Manly P. Hall a cult historian, really, at the base root of it. That's what he was. And even they would confirm that either Hermes was a fallen angel, and I go into detail as to even what Hermes was a representative of in ancient Greek, the ancient Greek pantheon, which is exactly the same as the description you would get of Thoth. And one of them, the three major ones, was a trickster, divine trickster, number one. Number two, or not in any order, the messenger god. Messenger in Greek is angelo, which is the Greek word for messenger, which is where the word angel comes from and what an angel means. So what kind of angel are we referring to? And he's also the conductors of souls after death, as also the originator of script. So obviously, casting spells through spelling and all that. I went through all of that, those details in that interview with Buck. So if you haven't checked it out, maybe you might be interested in checking that out. But I made a case, in my opinion, that was pretty solid, especially if I was to flush it out, that the description given and the way it goes, the story goes, even from the cosmology of Hermeticism, you'll see that there's a lot of inversions of what we would believe in Orthodox Christianity. And you'd have to make a case that one borrowed from the other. One was clearly, meant to be taught in secrecy. The other one out in the open. Christianity, obviously, out in the open. Obviously, you know which camp I fall into. But as I describe their cosmology and I describe Hermes, as well as how I break down the source documents and the examples of who Hermes was, it's pretty clear that anyone reading that, it would have a hard time saying that doesn't sound like a fallen angel, right down to the word of that. Okay, so if anyone wanted to hasn't checked that out, go check that out if you're interested in what I just said. But one of the things, and the way I started that conversation, was to explain about getting bogged down by detail. So I think I'm going to put a pause here, and then I'll come back to this, and I'll explain kind of what happened since that last conversation. So, and I'll come back to where I just left off, that point. I'll actually even write that down so I don't lose track. The God is in the details. Yes, let's write that down. Yes, let's write that down. Okay, so anyway, so what happened after I gave that little interview on Buck's show? I'm not saying I'm the first, but I don't really hear a lot of people when they talk about Hermeticism making a case for the fact that Hermes, Thoth, Trismegistus, Thoth, Hermes, all any which way you want to categorize the root of Hermeticism is deeply, deeply drenched in Luciferian philosophy, thinking, and their religion. And it's pretty clear that he was a fallen angel. I think it's difficult to argue that point, especially reading from their source documents, which they can't say, oh, I didn't understand or this and that. It's pretty clear. Again, Manly P. Hall isn't shy about it. He pretty much says it. We have many examples with the Theosophical Society and their connection to Lucius Trust, which was Lucifer Publishing. We're all well versed in all this stuff, and we all know what all this is about. Their connection to the United Nations, their connection to every single New Age and occult movement that bases a lot of their philosophy, thinking, and all that on the work of all those people. Real John Carter says Manly P. Hall is what they used to call the man's room. Sorry, I'm trying to clear my throat here. What else we have? What's up, Christina? Good to see you. Good to see you, John. The real John Connor. I think the thumbnail for the stream, that something happened after the stream. I think he's explaining it now. Yes, I am, Christina. That's what I'm getting at. So I think because I gave this... like I said, I don't think I've heard many people make that claim that way. I'm not the first. I think maybe more the people that have made those claims are part of an occult group, and they openly discuss their Luciferian belief system, right down to the Statue of Liberty being a mock-up of a painting done just a little bit before that, of Lucifer and the light bearer, and blinded by the light, which is why the Statue of Liberty holds that flame of liberty. And we know the connection to those shady secret societies and the French Revolution. So you guys all know all the stuff, so I won't go into any of that detail. The point I'm trying to make is, after doing that stream and making a clear case for a Luciferian agenda there, and an inversion on orthodoxy, an inversion on truth, and kept in the shadows, and also the way that the things are written, they're not so clear. After that interview, I have to say, okay, so before that interview, I was on my game, clear-headed, I was doing great. Got to say, I walked into Lent this year, first week or so thinking, I got this, I'm good. And then things started to kind of bubble up week 3. So I think I let my guard down a little bit too much. And I think I gave myself too much credit, because it wasn't easier. Actually, in a lot of ways, this is a harder Lent for me than last year was. It's just done in a secretive way, in a way that I'm kind of being led to believe that maybe somehow I have a good grasp on things. What's up, Denise? I missed that interview. I'm out of the loop. Oh, Manny, if you want to throw the interview in the chats, that'd be great. Welcome, Denise. Awesome to see you. Manny will throw that link in the comment box. So after I was done the interview, I already had a little situation on my hands that we could talk about too, because I think there's something that a lot was learned from that incident. It turned out to be beautiful and awesome, and myself and everyone involved in the incident struggled well and came out on top. There was that. And going back to the interview with Buck, after I got off that interview, I felt like, after I did the interview, not before it aired, but on the last Friday, I did the interview with Buck before it aired. I got off the call feeling great. I felt like I nailed it. I felt I did well. Rewatching the replay, there's some areas where I kind of don't think I did that good. But that's not the point. I get off the interview with Buck feeling great. Had dealt with the situation that I was alluding to earlier. That turned out to be amazing. It was great. It could have been a difficult situation, but we all handled it amazingly. And so that, needless to say, on Friday, after those two things, the interview and the conversation I had, I felt great. I felt like I was, it was hitting my stride again. We were getting things done. Within the Spooniverse, things were working out well. Things were really coming together. I felt like I was on cloud 9. But then I woke up the next day on Saturday, and I don't know how to describe this. Okay, so give me a second here, guys. This is one of those Mano rants. I don't want to blame the devil, the great deceiver, all the time, and say, because oftentimes he doesn't have to do much. Like, just leaving you to your own devices is just enough sometimes. And just, kind of nudging you, tempting you into certain directions. And then you just kind of fall back to, bad patterning and this and that. And then we're like, oh, I'm being attacked and this and that. And I'm sure to some degree we are. I do believe in spiritual warfare for sure, obviously. But I think sometimes, as St. Anthony said, when he talks about the story about the devil meeting him in the desert and saying, why does everyone always blame me? Kind of like sometimes it's like just the person just doing their dumb things. I know I said that really barbarically, but you guys know what I'm getting at. But I have to say, Saturday morning, Friday, I woke up and things were a bit different. I don't know if it's because I shook the hornet's nest by the claim I made on the interview with Buck and identifying Hermes Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, as a fallen angel or being guided by a fallen angel. But things were a bit different. I felt like I have felt what I would call a spiritual attack before. It has a particular feeling and thing. But then, I might like lie to myself and think I got things figured out, which we often do. But things were definitely different Saturday morning. And I don't know if it has to do with shaking the hornet's nest. But since then, I'd have to think, it hit me yesterday. I think it does have to do with the fact that I called out the devil, I guess, in that particular way. Because the type of spiritual warfare was next level. What I mean is, I don't know how it is for you guys, but when I get like Louis me popping in my head, or I could feel a temptation, or I could feel that, I have better control of myself. I could find a way to like get back to center, get back to prayer. Of course, that's the first thing that I go to, and find myself just kind of like, battling my own thoughts and, just batting away stupid ideas and thoughts and kind of just trying to focus, get right with my Jesus prayer and just whatever I can do to get myself back on track, which are usually based around things that tools I've been given from my spiritual father and a few other friends. But this time, like, there was no controlling it, like, meaning like none of that would work. It also felt like there was more of a fog around me. Then people started sending me messages about the interview after it aired on Wednesday, personally, or in other groups that I've seen, that I was surprised to see people talking about it. All positive, nothing negative. But it just seems like I struck a chord with some people that might have been in that world in the past, or didn't understand that world in the present, or considering it now. Because I think the case for Hermes Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus being a fallen angel, or either or inspired by a fallen angel directly, it's pretty clear. It's hard to kind of combat that. It's really difficult to come up with some mental gymnastics to like dance around that. If you were, let's say, someone of those beliefs and wanted to say, oh no, he's wrong. And then if you go to Satanists, a lot of them will tell you flat out that Hermeticism was a basis for the modern Satanist movements, from LaVey to the Temple of Seth. Their framework of how they teach their religion does come from Hermeticism, and solipsism is a key component to it, and playing with subjectivism and objectivism is a key component to it, and all the things I laid out in that interview. So I think that the case is pretty clear, and if you go to the people that practice this stuff and you really ask them directly, I'm not talking about someone that got like a surface level understanding of like of the occult. I'm talking about people that are deeper rooted. They'll admit to it. Yeah, that's what this is. It is a Luciferian doctrine, and really, what's wrong with Lucifer? They'll say, and it is an inversion of the Bible, because obviously that's their enemy. That's their target. Their target is God. Anyone that believes in God or has any of those beliefs. So after all of that, I don't know what to say, man. Things have been weird. It does feel like a direct attack. It does feel like I've shaken the hornet's nest. The questions I've gotten from people, privately or publicly in comment boxes, they seems like they're getting the point. That it seems like as unclear as I thought I delivered the message, they got a clear message out of it. And my dreams have been weird, but in a way that I've never experienced before. I have a decent background on paying attention in dreams, playing with dreams, conjuring up certain things in my dreams, dream work as they would have called it back in the day. This is before coming back to orthodoxy. I have a different view on what dreams are and all of that now that I've come back to the faith. But my point is that I do have experience in like looking at dreams, setting dreams up, becoming lucid in a dream, astral projection, all of that stuff. So the dream world is not foreign to me. But these dreams that I've been having, I've never experienced them like this before. Yeah, dream journaling, punchy. Yeah, for sure. Dream journaling is dangerous from an orthodox perspective, 100% for sure. But dream journaling is very much like automatic writing, where automatic writing is a form of a mediumship in the conscious awakened world. But the dream journaling is how you can kind of do that in your dream work. So you can actually like write down your dreams. You keep record of your dreams. That by doing that, you put your subconscious at attention, knowing, okay, we're paying attention to the dream state. Then you do certain actions in your waking life. By the way, I'm not advertising this stuff. I'm just telling you how the occult works through this stuff. So basically, while you're dream journaling, you're keeping record of the dreams you recall. You keep record for a couple of reasons. One is to come back and make references and try to understand it. Two, it's actually to make your subconscious pay attention to the fact that you care about dreams. So therefore, make a conscious effort to record and keep those dreams. Three, it's to build a dreamscape. This is the part that they don't really tell you about a lot of the surface tier stuff that you get in the new age. They don't tell you this part until you get deep rooted into it. What you're doing is you're building a dreamscape. What you're doing is you're bringing a holodeck within your own dream world where you can create things within that dream world. Okay, very similar to the holodeck described in Star Trek, which all derives from a lot of the same philosophies. So by doing this dream work, you create it's not synthetic, it's real. You create like a dream space where you can use it as a laboratory to communicate with whoever you want to communicate with. So example, like some people would have used it to conjure up Socrates, to have a conversation with him. I use the word conjure up on purpose. People use it as a way to conjure up demons or this and that, or their higher self, or these types of words that you keep hearing. So those are the three goals of dream journaling. Then there's techniques you would use to make yourself lucid in dreams, that you do them in the waking state. So again, you'd go back to the Kabbalion, which is right out of the Hermetic stuff, as above, so below, as below, so above. So as within sleep, same like as waking life is, same with sleeping life. So basically you try to replicate the two. So one of the ways that they would do this is they would harness. So basically every time you walk through past the door, you put your hand on the door and you say, am I dreaming? And you do this in your waking state. You do this over and over again throughout your day. And then when you're in your dream state, your waking life will be reflected in your dream state. So in your dreams, when you're walking through a doorway, you'll remember, oh yeah, you put your hand on the door and you ask yourself, am I dreaming? And then when you're in the dream, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm actually dreaming. And then it creates a lucid moment. From there, you can do a bunch of weird things. So this is stuff that is taught in the occult. This is exactly how it's described when you get deep enough in the occult and you understand dream work. This is the stuff that you won't get on a simple new age description of dream working or dream journaling and I said it earlier, auto writing, automatic writing and things like that. Let me just see what's in the chats right now. My priest instructed me to disregard all dreams. Yes, Daniel, I agree. Had worse dreams in years last night, actually. Interesting, Brody. Yes, Daniel, that I fully agree with your priest. I've been given the same advice. I could assure you from my background in playing with dreams it can be very dangerous. And dreams is one of the ways. Okay, so one of the things I was trying to do with the hermeticism stuff is to identify that certain tools they're using and thinking and techniques they're using them because they work. Why do they work? Because we know God uses them or has created this world that we live in, and how we kind of navigate through all of that is by keeping our attention, focus, and our lives geared towards God, church, family, and community. And it's very clear. With the occult, obviously what they're going to do is they're going to use an engine, let's call it, a machine, let's call it, that functions and works. Otherwise, why would they waste their time? The only thing that they're going to do is they're going to eliminate the GPS system, so you don't know where you're going. You have no navigation system, and they make it all about you. That's why you get self-worship out of this, which is literally, again, the story of the fallen angels. We know all that, right? So of course they're going to use this stuff and they're going to deceive you in such a way. Again, reminder, devil doesn't create. He can only use things around him. Only God can create. So of course he's going to invert certain things that work. So dreams is a perfect place for them. As you heard my description of how you create the dream state, the holodeck. By you creating that holodeck, you create that. But what you're also doing is you're creating a space for these demonic entities to come in and communicate with you, exactly as they would in a psychedelic or experience, exactly as they would if you went into deep forms of meditation without having your GPS guide towards God and the pre-denominational church, us, Orthodox Christianity, right? If you don't have that as your GPS guide, you don't have that as your direction, then you're in this very, very, very dangerous state and like actual place where you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. And of course, you're going to be deceived every which way, right? So your dream state is very akin to a psychedelic experience. The same sort of space is created, right? Now, a lot of your dreams is how you get an easier download of logismi. It's an easier way of deceiving you because you attach yourself to your dream and you say, well, it's part of me. And it's a very easy entry point. This is just the same as when you're walking down the street and you have this thought pop in your head. We know as Orthodox Christians, not all thoughts are ours. That is literally, you're more susceptible to that when you're in dream state. So I would be very, very weary of dreams. Personally, this is just not advice, but this is just how I deal with them. I do have vivid dreams and I dream vividly, always have. I just kind of view them as like, oh, well, there's that thing that happened and I just move on. I don't really attach any meaning to anything. I don't look at it as a meaningful thing. I kind of look at it as something that occurred in the night and there it is. And if God wants me to pay attention to something more, well, he'll be more direct with me. Kind of the same way as I would deal with anything that would be like similar to prelist. If you have like, a vision of some sort, I just would say deny it. And then if God really wants to make contact with you, he'll understand why you denied it and he will find a way to do so. That's how I deal with this, based on some readings I've done, based on conversations I've had with people that have a background in the occult who are now Orthodox. So back to my point, my dreams have been pretty nuts in a way I can't really describe. I can't even say that I've ever dreamt this way before. It's totally new to me, which I find strange because I spent a lot of time in dream states, self-induced. I was surprised. These dreams are different. They don't feel like they're even coming from me. They won't allow me to ignore them. So like even throughout my day, like I'm not even thinking about the dream and they just boom, 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 just pop in there. And I don't have as much control as I normally do to be like, no, like I don't pay attention to it. I don't harness myself to the dream or the thoughts, but like they're pretty crazy and they're disturbing in a mano way. Like what I mean by that is some people might be disturbed by monsters or whatever. Not so much for me. For me, what disturbs me is me being confused. I don't like being confused, and the dreams are trying to make me doubt myself and doubt the path that I'm on, and I don't like that. To be clear, I spend a lot of time in thinking about why I think things, and I don't accept things so black and white, as you probably have noticed. And I try to keep my mouth shut on some stuff, back to why I brought up the Dunning-Kruger effect and some of the things that are happening. So anyways, those dreams turned into logos-me throughout the day. They're difficult to bat down. And then I just feel like I have like this smog cloud around me, and I can't find focus. I can't harness what I need to get done. I'm still getting things done, but I just don't feel right about it. Like I just don't feel right about it, how to do it and all that stuff. Only I would know, because obviously it's happening to me, how different this feels. This feels really, really different. So I don't know if I'm blaming the devil for my stupidities, but it really feels like he's upped his game on getting at me, for sure. I seem to have pissed him off, is how I see it. I haven't reached out to my spiritual father on this, or other people specifically. But I think in that interview, making that connection, because I don't think I've heard a lot of people make that connection. And I'm going to get back into to where I left off earlier about God's in details and all that stuff. I think it's problematic what I did or how I went about it. I don't think it was wrong. Jemana says, how often are you asking Vladika's intercession? Probably not often enough, but as often, definitely daily. I would say definitely daily. Definitely daily, yeah. I'm not trying to make this out to be like I'm a victim or feel bad for me. Not at all. I think we're all kind of going through some hardcore stuff right now, to be straight up and honest with you. I'm just kind of explaining some stuff because whoever sticks around to listen to more of this, you'll see some connections to the world we live in today, and how and why I've kind of been avoiding certain subjects. I might get into some of them, but maybe I won't. But I'll definitely get into the reasons of it for sure. I definitely opened up a door. A friend of mine said, well, you opened up that door, the battle door, when you had Father Turbo on. I agree, for sure. Personally, I could feel it. But this one is different. I'm happy about how I'm dealing with some of it. Some of it not so much, but some of it I am. But my point is, I think I hit a nerve. And I think it's how I try to position things. What I'm saying is, when you get into a conversation with someone about any subject that's difficult to talk about, where people strongly disagree, in this modern era, it wasn't always like this, we get bogged down by the details. So I'm going back to that point. Maybe I'll make more sense here, and why I brought up the Dunning-Kruger effect and where I'm going with this. Okay. In the interview with Buck, he had asked me, what is Hermeticism? Okay. And then to explain that, you're going to get bogged down with so many details and so many people saying, no, he doesn't understand Gnosticism. No, he doesn't understand Hermeticism. He got that all wrong. He has to read this book or that book. And then we just get bogged down with the details. So I start off by saying there's an interesting inversion just in the phrasing. God is in the details, and then it was switched to the devil's in the details. And I explain what I mean there. And it's my take on that. And I'm sure someone will say I've got that all wrong, but I think it's true. The devil is in the details and God is in the details. So the original phrase was God is in the details, and it was switched to the devil's in the details. And I use this as an example to explain why I don't want to get bogged down in the details of what Hermeticism is. So the statement God is in the details is for those people that just are very curious, overly curious. And of course the church warns us on curiosity and how we approach it. But some people just need to know everything and every piece of detail and every piece of church history and everything from this and that to kind of like get to the end goal, right? Now, God is in the details. If someone's an atheist and they're a physicist, let's say, and they start looking at like what makes up matter, and they keep looking and they break things down to like molecules, and then and they just keep going, you hit this one point where you can't understand anything without having God included in it, which is where you kind of get things like the transcendental argument for God. Tag. Where does logic come from? Where does consciousness come from? It's a commonly discussed thing amongst all kinds of sciences, atheists or not, where they call it the hard problem when they try to describe what is consciousness, the awareness of being aware. What is this thing that's aware of itself thinking, which is what I'm doing right now? Where does this come from? You can't explain it through matter. You can't explain it through an atheistic worldview. You can't. It cannot be explained. It couldn't be explained by the ancient Greeks and their paganism, or the Vedic pagans, or whoever you want to pick. Okay, you just can't explain it. You need to include God in it. So that if you just keep digging and digging and digging, you'll have to come to this one conclusion to ask yourself, what is consciousness? And you'll have to make like a logical leap of faith. Logical leap of faith, meaning like there's a logical path that's saying if one plus, and you just make this formula, it must mean that there's a God. Like example, I also talk about that in the thing, why weird people believe in solipsism in itself is stupid. It's because like, you know, if the only thing that you know that exists for sure is your mental state, well, I can assume that you do the same thing I do because you're human. And I see that you have the effects of something, like the effects of a movement, whether it's a word or something you build, whether it's you build a table or whatever. I can assume you had a thought about the table ahead of time and envisioned it in your mind. And then from that mental picture, you created a table. Right? Like, you know, like let's say a unique table that no one's ever made before. You've designed that in your head. You drew it out in the physical form. Then you built it in the physical form. I can now assume clearly you have the ability to think just like I do. How do I know that? Because that's how I cook. That's how I write a song. That's how I, whatever, right? So the reason why I'm coming from that is that's what's meant, and what I was trying to explain is like God is in the details last week. Now, they changed that, inverted it to the devil's in the details, which is also true in a different way. What I was trying to say there in that interview is that, well, we're not going to look at it from the God standpoint. Obviously, we're looking at it from a different standpoint. The devil's in the details. Well, you often get caught up in all of the rigmarole and data gathering and then regurgitating data information. And when you're having a conversation with someone on a difficult subject, you get bogged down in all those details and it leads to nothing. It leads to nowhere. You just constantly are stuck in that wheel. So how does this relate to like last week's Hermeticism thing? Well, the reason why I approached the conversation from just going to source materials to talk about Hermes being a fallen angel, that's not deniable by someone that's a Hermeticist. They can't really say, oh, well, you don't understand this or that. They can say that, but I'm not making a point that you can't clearly just go to the source document and read it and say, look, this is the case made from the source documents you believe in. So therefore, you don't have a problem with me, you have a problem with the source document. So what I think that approach and the way I kind of put that out there pissed off the great deceiver and his minions or whatever, and why I've had this strange week since then. But one of the points I was trying to make in that, I didn't get to it because, well, that's not where the interview went. And it's why I've been avoiding a lot of the subjects that are hot subjects right now. It's because of the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you guys are familiar with it, basically, long story short, when someone comes into a subject that's new to them, they gather a lot of information in a short period of time, and they consider themselves to be a know-it-all, and I know all this stuff. If you continue on that subject and you keep researching, then it starts to dip, and you start realizing, oh, maybe I don't know as much as I think I do. And then you kind of hit this bottom where you're like, dude, I don't know anything. And then you start, if you still stick to it, you keep going and gathering information, then you start to become a little bit more balanced in that subject matter, and you know less. On a lot of the subjects that are being talked about out there, I see a lot of the same patterns I see with how they use delusion in Hermeticism to safeguard their teachings and push people away from Orthodox Christianity. Okay, and the tools that they use is obviously solipsism and subjectivism versus objectivism, and they start to infuse feelings in there to kind of generate this machine to keep going. So your feelings matter, which is why you'll gather closer and closer to subjectivism. Then you start throwing in a dopamine addiction there, and all of a sudden you're addicted to looking for more information because it becomes an addiction, and you start wanting to gather data, this and that. Devil's in the details. Remember that comparison I was trying to make? This was the point I was trying to get at. Then you start just spewing out all this data, and it doesn't really achieve any goal. You're just kind of like avoiding the subject of what God really is, because a lot of these hermeticists or people that believe in many different forms of paganism, from Hinduism to shamanism to whatever, their illusion is that they're looking for truth. We clearly know that that's not the case, because when they're confronted with things that they can't answer, they have to go to some form of reasoning that leads them to the transcendental argument for God. And you have to find yourself in a position where you need to accept that I'm pretending like I'm not Orthodox right now, and I'm just kind of coming to that conclusion. You have to now accept that this world that you live in and everything around you, your mind, all of that stuff, everything, the way that these anomalies work, and why it's called the hard problem in science, consciousness that is, and all that, you have to conclude that there is a personal God, not an impersonal God. That's a key factor that's not often talked about when you look at the occult or New Age stuff. We have a God that has an identity that we can go to directly. It's an objective. He's objective. All the subject matter around it can be objectified. You can find proof in your solid state reality to prove that, right? But then you have these other people that are not atheists that believe in an impersonal God, a God that's kind of like moldable, that can be like a subjective thing, whatever you want. And you get perennialism that comes, a lot of the perennial thinkers will think this way. Well, the God that's described by so-and-so is the same as so-and-so. I'm trying to be, careful here. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to piss anybody off directly. Maybe I should even explain why I don't want to piss people off. I don't have a problem with it. I never did in the past. But I'm getting to some of the subjects I don't talk about because I see the same trap, okay? I see the same delusion. I see the same deception, okay? And as they say in stock market stuff, and I would apply this to history, I would apply this to philosophy or anything else. One of the techniques I used last week on Friday when I did the interview with Buck on Hermeticism is, I think, one of the ways that I pissed people off. Not people that in our community or anybody. Nobody got pissed off, but I'm talking about the great deceiver. But calling people got pissed off, is that I used a technique like, when in doubt, zoom out. When in doubt, zoom out. They say it all the time in stocks and trading and looking at analysis of charts. And I think it's a very interesting tool to use when you're looking at, are you being deceived? What do I mean by that? Someone that's in the occult, what Buck was asking about TikTok, occultism, I left a few things out. Not on purpose, just because of time. But one of the things is the Dunning-Kruger effect is in play here, where these people, they just received all this new information, like especially now with what we're hearing with the pyramids and all that stuff, or what's happening in finance or in governance in general. People that are new to realizing that there's a deception are on the top part of the Dunning-Kruger chart. Okay, they're on the top where they think they've got everything figured out. Everyone in the chat, let me know if you're familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect. If not, I'll play a quick little video just so you can kind of get what I'm saying, because I think it's important to make my point as to why last week's interview with Buck went the way it did in a positive way, and why I pissed certain people off. I'm talking about the deceiver and some of the stuff that's happening in our world today, politically, financially, spiritually. All those things are very much like this. No, help me understand. Okay, I'll get it. Oh, you brought up the chart. Okay. I wanted to play a quick video. Okay, well, you know what? Bring up the chart. Bring up the chart. Can they see my cursor? No. Okay, right there where it says the peak ignorance. Okay, so when someone, you know what? I'm going to bring up the video. I'll send it to you, Manny, if you can throw it up there real quick, because I don't want to dingy-dang the dang-a-dings. You know what I'm saying? So I really hope, my intention isn't, when I get to the other stuff, which I've been avoiding giving my 2 cents on a lot of the subject out there. I probably won't directly give my 2 cents, but you'll get where I'm coming from. I hope I don't piss anyone off. It's just that I see the same pattern with hermeticists and occultists and New Agers and people like that. I sent it to you in the board no more, Manny. I see the same sort of thing, and why the royal path matters. The royal path matters, and it's funny because people that get slammed, are people that are usually considered, oh, you're just a centrist, and like they'll get pissed at these people. That's kind of the royal path, man. And this black pill versus white pill thing, if I get there, is a total inversion. You're being screwed. 100%. That's not my opinion. Guaranteed. What people are referring to as a black pill in certain sects of the internet, it's funny because if you have to ask a far right or just a right person on the right or a person on the left, they have the same term, but they mean two different things. Black pill, that's funny in itself. So that's clearly a psyop. And it's described very much by even CIA agents who go out there to actually commit psyops. They create this situation. When I do get to that political stuff, I hope I don't piss anybody off. I probably will to some degree, but there's a reason why I haven't been talking about these things. And there's also a reason why I'm bringing out, when in doubt, zoom out. When in doubt, zoom out. And why I'm pointing out that people get bogged down in all these conversations on these details, and they just keep getting stuck in like, well, what about this point? Well, what about this point? Well, this person passed this edict. Well, this guy said this over here, and we're winning this war, culture war. We're winning. Nah, you're just getting stuck in that trap that I was trying to discuss, and I'm pretty sure that I pissed off the dark side because of the way I referenced this, and I could see clearly that's still occurring in the geopolitical prism out there, especially with the way that the people are looking at pilling. It's identical and the exact same thing as how people get called out for being racist, or people get called out for anti-vax and this and that and pro-vax and conspiracy. It's the same play by the same people. It's identified clearly in Tavistock documents and all that stuff. It's definitely a problem. Manny, do you have the video? Okay, hold on. Can I fast forward it from my end? No? Shoot. Okay, start playing it. Skip.
MacArthur Wheeler robbed a bank. Visible on a camera footage on the local 11 o'clock news. And just after midnight,
the bank stuff.
Dunning and Justin Kruger, two psychologists, studied Mr. Wheeler and others like him. They came to the conclusion that people with low ability at a task tend to, paradoxically, overestimate themselves. This cognitive bias is known as the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Pause.
Let's look at this graphically.
Pause. Okay, one thing that's important to note there, it's also described very much in documents on how to conduct a psyop, because people even using the term psyop has become a psyop because everyone just uses it so frequently. It doesn't really have a meaning, but actual psyops, okay? One of the sure ways of doing it is confusion, okay? So oftentimes people, I'm kind of veering off here, but I hope I make a good point here and connect it to the Hermeticism conversation. What I'm trying to connect here is undeniable things that you can't really argue, just like the way I gave the position that Hermes must have been a fallen angel. And I explained why not to get stuck in the details and zoom out. When in doubt, zoom out. That's a key way of doing it. So how I did it with the Satanist stuff and the Luciferian thing is like, what is the goal of Hermeticism and where do you find this goal? That's when in doubt, zoom out. Because someone will say it's all good stuff. It's all good things that come out of Hermeticism. Really? Well, when in doubt, zoom out. What's their ultimate goal? Manipulation through secrecy, and manipulating things around you to create an alchemical process where you have control of things. And if someone's in the ignorant, it's your job to manipulate them. That's straight up in the doctrines. It's part of their alchemy, and that you're the most important thing because you're the arbiter of your reality. You create that reality. Solipsism. What does this sound like? Exactly like Luciferian deception. When in doubt, zoom out. So when I gave that argument, I said basically either the Orthodox Church ripped off from Hermeticism or vice versa. It's up to the person to decide. And the two positions I gave is one is done in secrecy. The other one is Jesus Christ did not go in secret corners and whisper his teachings. He taught in front of everyone, out in the open, free for anyone that was willing to listen, okay? So clearly you could see the outcome of the Orthodox Church, and you could see the outcome of Hermeticism. Now, that is when in doubt, zoom out. So I'm going to try to make the same claim for a lot of the weird things we get stuck in today's world. The terminal online, yeah, I agree with that, but that's not what we're talking about, the online, terminally online thing. I would suggest that clip I made of, and it's not me, it's Bishop Gerasim. He definitely nails it. Okay, let's go back to the Dunning thing. Okay, so what ends up happening is confusion is a huge part. So as he described, is that you get someone to get to the point where they're at the peak of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where they're in ignorance. They think they know all these things because they were just, they just found out this new information and they know all this stuff. Now, the other thing that happens is confusion, okay? We saw that a lot during the COVIDs. We saw that in 2020. Now, the false narrative is that the opposing side is stupid. It's stupid to assume that they're stupid. These are people that know you better than you know yourself, like your basic psychology. So when you saw someone say, wear a mask, and then they say, don't wear a mask, it's not based on stupidity. When they said, oh, hey, look, you can go to the restaurant, you have to wear a mask, and then when you go to your, when you walk in, you wear the mask, and then when you sit down, take it off, and then people are like, oh, look how stupid they are. They think the virus stops working. No, you're stupid if you think that. They're working on the ignorance that they want you to argue. No, that's done intentionally, okay? That's done intentionally. Or bring your own shopping bags to the grocery store because you don't want the virus on there, because if you bring one from home, if you bring one from home, all of a sudden the virus is going to be on the bag. You can't bring them in. I don't know if they were doing that in the States, but they were doing that in Canada. You have to use their bags because the bag you have from home has the virus on it, but yet you're wearing clothes that you have from home, right? You can think of all the examples you want, locking people in their house. There's so many. These were done intentionally. Why? Is because they create, it does certain things. Number one, it gets everyone arguing, right? So then someone calls someone an anti this and a pro this, and then, right? The other thing is it creates confusion. It also creates stupid arguments. It's dumb arguments. Like, why do I need to have a debate with someone about a mask walking into a restaurant? You know what I mean? Like, you're the idiot for having that conversation. Why are you wasting your time? If the person can't figure out logically, and they know logically, they know that doesn't make sense. They're not stupid. They know that, but they're not gonna agree with you because they want to argue their point, and you're an anti something, right? So that is literally what they do. What ends up happening is when this confusion keeps happening, and it happens with the media in the reports you get. We chalk it up to stupidity, like, oh, well, they just released this new official document saying that, the shangy langa danga dinga ding dong you're all sticking in your body doesn't work, right? And then they release another article that says, well, that's a conspiracy theory to think that, and here's it's fact checked. And then you read the fact check document and you realize they're not even fact checking what they're saying. They didn't do that. That's on purpose. Nobody's stupid there. You know what I mean? When you see a politician bumbling on a podium, do you really I'm sorry, like, do you really, like, you're watching a TV show, man? Like, it's pretty clear. Like, why do we think that they're so stupid? No, if you know what the game is, when in doubt, zoom out. You're stupid. If you're having to explain to someone the difference between a man and a woman, why are you wasting your time? You get stuck in the devil in the details. Then you're just rambling out data over and over again, right? And what are you doing? You're just participating in their stupidity. You're not doing anything. There's no solution here. You're not going to change their mind. And that isn't even the point. That isn't the point. Sorry, I'm going to go off a little bit here because this just keeps reoccurring. If you took a Democrat from the 60s, you've heard this 100 times. Like, you take JFK's views on things in the 60s and you brought him into today's world, he would be considered far right. You know what I mean? You've heard this 100 times. That shifting of goalposts is done on purpose. It has always been done on purpose because you become far more suggestible when there's contradictions out there. It creates a true cognitive dissonance, okay? And it functions on dopamine, it functions on your emotions, and it puts you down in a spiral. And you just go, devil's in the details, bud. You're stuck. You're stuck. You're done. Okay, and it's like when I have a conversation with a new ager and they're like, well, these teachings came from Atlantis. I'm like, I don't care where you think they came from. Can I look at the actual philosophy of New Age occultism and see, can I identify what they all have in common? And they all have solipsism in common, subjectivism in common, and they all have you as being worshipped. You are God. Like they tell you that. They invert theosis. Okay, we know what theosis is. I don't need to explain it to you guys. Okay, in fact, maybe many of you guys could explain it to me because I'm new to this. But from my understanding, it's pretty obvious and clear what theosis is. Okay, and then their version, they have a version, is you become God. Not like in the image and likeness of God. You become God. You become a creator of your universe. That's how the bottom line of all occultism, all paganism, all you are God. When you're sacrificing something to a pagan god, what you're doing is you're asking for their powers in that department to give you the ability to manifest and change the world around you alchemically. Okay, that's what you're doing. We don't view our world that way as Orthodox Christians. It's very clear, biblically speaking, what our goal here is, right? Our goal is to become a saint. Our goal is to get as close to theosis as possible. Okay, these are very humble, earnest goals. And along the way, you're going to be a better person, right? And along the way, you're going to accept and understand your struggles, right? And these are the exact opposite of this occultism. And what I'm trying to get at is the way that we view media today, which was created by these individuals, okay? Like, I really don't even want to talk about these things, but people seem, this is what they want to, you know? And I've told Father Turbo, I don't want to talk about these things. I think I'm just going to put everything out and then I'm just going to walk away from it and people could do whatever they want with it. But it's really freaking clear that the way this all is, like, I know I'm not being dead clear because I don't want to cause arguments. It's not because I'm afraid to argue it. I just like, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't care what, like, but just believe what you want. If you want to get caught in the hamster wheel of data gathering and then regurgitating it, well, ask yourself why you're even doing that. Like, these are ego machines that we're sitting in front of right now. You're all sitting in front of an ego machine. I am sitting in front of an ego machine. I'm using ego tools, and I'm doing my best to not make it about me. That's, you know what I mean? And if you're using your gadgets properly and they're not using you, you're doing the same thing. But it's so hard to lose track of that and be deceived in it. So all this information we're gathering, when we in doubt, zoom out. What's the goal that they're trying to get you at? Okay? So to go back to the Dunning-Kruger thing, if we can go back there, because what I went off was about cognitive dissonance. Hold on, don't hit play yet. Where they keep trying to teach you, oh, they're so stupid on the other side. Look how stupid they are. Are there dumb people? There are on every side, for sure. And I've heard everybody say stupid things. Is one doctrine a little bit more solid than the other? Absolutely. Is one more based in objectivism versus subjectivism? Absolutely. But then when you start questioning certain things, they're like, oh, you're black-pilled. Or they're like, well, look at this edict that was passed. Or look what good happened here. I'm like, nah, man. When in doubt, zoom out. When in doubt, zoom out. So the reason why I brought up the masks things and all that stuff, I'm definitely not humble, Denise. I'm starting to realize that more and more. I'm definitely not humble. It's a goal for sure, but I'm nowhere near there. What was I going to say? The reason why I'm talking about the top tier of this Dunning-Kruger effect is most people that are talking stuff are there. They haven't even questioned why they're even saying what they're saying. And how do you know you're not in the trap? It's what I was trying to mention with the interview we did with Jason is like, I have to accept the fact that I'm in the trap. How am I in the trap? How am I being used? And what can I do about it? Right? And I think we have to all come to that conclusion. You're being used. When in doubt, zoom out. Okay. So back to the whole cognitive dissonance thing, that was done on purpose. The more that they create cognitive dissonance with like wear 2 masks, wear no mask, wear 5 masks, it'll work. Just take 1 shot. No, take 15 shots. And then someone's like, I told you they're going to tell you to wear more. I told you this and that. Oh, locking down works. When, you know, and then you have these articles that are, this is done because your brain works in this particular way where it gets exhausted of this. And then all of a sudden you're more susceptible to dopamine hits, looking for them and chasing for them. Then as soon as you start getting confused, then you get addicted to gathering data so that when you're at the Thanksgiving dinner table, you can like one up someone and you could be like, oh, well, I know this information about this political situation, or I know this about this medical experiment that they're doing on you. And then the whole thing is, it's to create this false image of yourself, this false reason as to why you're doing it. So you're sitting there going, well, I'm trying to educate people, and that's why I'm gathering this information. Now, am I saying be ignorant? Absolutely not. But what do you do with the information that you've gathered? I made some mistakes in that time because, like, as you've heard me say, I knew that the COVID thing was going to happen in 2019 based on things I've already discussed. And it's not that I knew, it's just I knew where to look because I'd spent so much time in this weird online conspiracy, what's consciousness, what's truth, what's new age, what's science, what's physics, all that stuff. I spent so many years in that. I saw the patterns over and over again, and they're the same, okay? And let me just make a quick little point here. There's only 2 times I can tell you in the last 20 years that I've seen the elite types shit their pants. There's only twice. And it's evident, when in doubt, zoom out and look at those scenarios. The 2 is Occupy Wall Street the first time, because you had leftists, rightists, and centrists all agree the banking was the problem. They all uniformly agreed. Whether you were an anarcho this or an anarcho that, whether you're an anarcho-capitalist or an anarcho-communist, you agreed on that. That was in full agreement. And it was the first time that people got together on a organic level, as far as I can remember a time, and people were doing something about it. That scared them totally, okay? They learned from that. It's also a coincidence, quinky dink, that right after that, they drummed up identity politics. That's when it started to really come to play. Yes, it has its roots over here. Yes, it has its roots over there. But what's its ultimate goal? And that's pretty clearly stated in many different places. You could see in many different think tanks as to why that was the case, right? And it doesn't mean that when you're having that identity politics, culture canceling, cancel culture thing and all that stuff, it doesn't mean that a lot of things that were stated weren't true. They were. But what are you doing about it? How are you not in the sorcerer's circle? You're in the sorcerer's circle. You are in the sorcerer's circle. If you don't zoom out, okay, and to see what is happening here and what you're doing with this. Why are you doing this? Okay? So, one time that they scared everybody was that. The second time, and it's not because I'm Canadian, man. I was never like pro-Canada. I was never pro anything like in that regard, ever, never, not once. So like, it's not about that. Was the trucker rally. I mentioned that 100 times. How fast have we all forgotten about that? And if it's brought up in like a way like, oh, this thing happened and some people are still in jail and they froze people's bank accounts. That's all you hear now, okay? But let's stop and think about what happened. You saw a country that's pacifist. The most pacifist bend over country in the planet is Canada, okay? And no backbone, no identity, no culture. Like, let's be honest. Let's just be honest. I'm sorry. There isn't. It's not designed that way. It was never designed that way. That's why it's a mosaic and the U.S. is a melting pot. You can create a culture if you have a melting pot and when people come there, they identify as but Canada's not like that, man. Okay. And that passive country, that country that rolls over for everything, what happens? They literally say, no, we're not doing this in the most Canadian way possible in the freaking snow with hockey sticks holding Canadian flags and like bouncy castles and people drinking coffee in the streets and all that stuff. And what do? They shut down a country. And then other people throughout the world were like, screw this, we're doing something true too. You had all the European truckers, you had Australian truckers going, the US, everybody joined in on this thing. It was the second time that I remember in my life, globally, people were like, we're not doing this. And that is when they backed off of the first incarnation, the first attempt to implement the new system. which is a very old system. Okay? Am I talking about elections and that? Partially. Okay? A lot of people out there are either fans of James Corbett or they're fans of Jay Dyer. Both Jay Dyer and James Corbett, I credit for introducing me to Carol Quigley a very long time ago. Well, not just them, also Myron Fagan and a few other people, but doesn't matter. J. Edward Griffith, a bunch of people had mentioned Carol Quigley. If you guys don't know who he is, I'm not going to give you guys a breakdown of it. You basically, let's just look at him as the key historian of the elites. Georgetown professor, idolized by Bill Clinton. He's the one that did a historical breakdown of the Anglo-American establishment, Tragedy and Hope, the two monster volumes that Jay Dyer did an amazing job breaking them down, because who wants to read that garbage? I remember trying to read that garbage in 2004, and just wanting to be like, I do want this over now. This is awful. Bottom line is, he makes it very clear on how elections work, and have since the 60s, at least. Okay? And it's not even debatable. It's funny because people that I know that like James Corbett or like Jay Dyer, I'll hear them say, well, no, wait a minute, that's not how it is this time. And this, really? Do you think they're that stupid? Like, do you really think that they're that stupid? They're not that stupid. They're not stupid when they put up like bumbling idiots as politicians. And there's more than one. There's not just one I'm referring to. They're all that. Like, that's like the same people that have all the funds, okay, and the ones that really have the funds you can't put a name to, the same ones that funded all the think tanks to break down your psychology, the same ones that started World War I, the same ones that started World War II, the same ones that put the United Nations into power and the World Economic Forum, all of those guys, they're going to let you vote? Like, I'm just going to say it, man. And if you don't agree, cool. Go argue with Carol Quigley, okay? And here, you want me to read it with my barbaric reading attempts? I'll read it. This one's for Moldy. He's not here. But this one's for Moldy because he loves when I read out loud. And am I a total idiot? Yes. Should you listen to me? Probably not, which is why I don't talk about these things. But the reason why I'm talking about it now is so many people have asked my opinions on this stuff that I'm like kind of like, okay, do I really have to say something? And I didn't want to, and I wasn't, and I've avoided it when I've been on shows or any of that. And I'm not going to get into the details because, again, the devil's in the details. Okay, and that's where they want to get you lost, right? Well, but they passed this edict. Well, yeah, they have this affiliation, but also they did this. When in doubt, zoom out. That's what we're going to do here. And the reason I'm talking about it more is I see the exact same bullshittery from the Hermeticists. I see the same thing here. And as I described to you guys who Hermes was, let's just do it again because I have it right here. I described his connection to the fallen angels. And the Greek description of Hermes, which is the same as Mercurius, the Roman equivalent, who's all the banking elites, all of the banking organizations have the caduceus of Hermes on all of their stuff for a reason. Okay, Hermes is connected to Thoth, all that stuff. People can't argue this stuff. I read from the source documents that clearly it's a fallen angel, that clearly a fiery serpent gave him this information for his secretive ministry, okay? And then clearly he describes the birth of the Son of God, of man from their point of view, which is not Jesus Christ, from their point of view and all that stuff. I described it to detail. There's no way you can discount what I read because it's not my opinion. It's right out of the source documents. And then let's go back to Hermes. Hermes is the messenger, angel, angelo, Greek word for messenger. He's the trickster, the divine trickster. He's the conductor of souls in the afterlife. These three things right here should alarm you. He's an angel of what? He's a trickster? So God's angel is going to be a trickster? I don't think so. Jesus Christ didn't teach in secrecy. Okay? Then we have the conductor of souls in the afterlife? Kind of like Charon, what do you say in English? The Grim Reaper? Kind of like that? Kind of like how it is in Egyptian metaphysics? The Egyptian Book of the Dead? Kind of like that? That's literally what he is. Also, he's the god of the merchants, bankers, wealthy, Language, because that's how you create a narrative. That's how you cast a spell, by spelling. Sports and boundaries. Boundaries creates nations. Okay, that's why you see the caduceus of Hermes on all those buildings, because that's their god. That's who they're worshiping. Okay, and if that's true, when in doubt, zoom out. When in doubt, zoom out. The same sorcery is being played in front of us when it comes to politics, when it comes to all of it, and we're all included in the trap, myself included. That's why I stated on when I was on Jason's show at the interview, I'm trying to figure out how I'm in this thing. So go back to the Dunning effect. I hope this is all piecing together. I realized I think in terms of like links on a wiki page. I've always done that. Like I talk as if I'm reading a wiki page, and then I hit a link to explain it, and then I come back to the article. So if you ever want to understand how I think, I guess that's how I think. So now I'm going back to the article from having hit those links. And the reason why I was mentioning the cognitive dissonance that you were all a part of in the 2020 experiment is to create that exhaustion, is to create data seekers that become addicted to data, that become addicted to like, well, you don't need to wear the mask because this study says this. And then the other person does the same thing because they have equal studies for both sides. So when you zoom out of that, what am I looking at? Two idiots arguing. I've been an idiot. I've been the one idiot. And you're not going to convince someone if they don't believe that there's male and female. You're not going to convince them. And then you'll say, oh, well, I'm trying to have this conversation for the person listening. Okay, there is a positive thing there for sure. But back to the cognitive dissonance, it gets you addicted to fighting people with data. Info wars. Okay? Then you couple it up with identity politics. Now you're all focused on what you are, not who you are. Who you are is created in the image and likeness of God. What you are is what you identify in your physical form. Okay? So now they get you in that loop. Cognitive dissonance. Well, masks, no masks. Wear a mask. Go to the store. Don't go to the store. Lock this guy in. Don't do that. This country did this. And then, oh, but this information. Oh, well, what about this? Oh, well, what in 1945 they created this thing where the vaccines did this. And all of a sudden your brain's like, You know what happens on the cognitive level when that happens? You're just like, somebody give me an answer. I need to make a call. Somebody give me an answer. This guy sounds like he makes the most sense. I'm picking that guy. Yeah, you've been in this position. You've been in this position 100 times in your life. When you're trying to buy a car, this and that, you get bogged down. And you're like, okay, I just finally have to make a call. They want you in that exhausted state, because that's when you're going to pick the wrong side. Now, what's the best way to get someone to make a decision? Based on nudge theory. That came from Cass Sunstein, who worked with the Obama campaign, who also has a deep knowing of behavioral psychology and has gone to all these think tanks. It's so simple. Humans are so simple. We're all simple. Everybody wants to give their opinion. Everybody wants to drop a comment. Everybody thinks their opinion matters. It doesn't. Your opinion really doesn't matter. Mine doesn't too. Ultimately speaking, I'm not saying like, on specifics. I'm just saying generally speaking. So they play people on that. So then the common idiot that shouldn't be commenting on something speaks with such certainty. So we're going to get back to the Dunning-Kruger thing in just a second here. But this state of cognitive dissonance, feeding that part of you that loves that knowing information, makes you addicted to digging for information. So all you're doing is digging for information so that you can spew it out somewhere and create an argument with somebody, right? It keeps you in that loop. So you're doing everything but one thing. You're not looking for a solution. You're not looking at, you're in the freaking trap. When in doubt, zoom out. What do they want? Compliance. What do they want? People fighting. What do they want? To control a lot of people with a small amount of effort. How are they going to do that? This way. And then your brain gets to a point where it gets exhausted and it just shuts down and it wants somebody, daddy state, mommy state, to give you the answer. And then if you don't have that, then what you would do is, and everyone wants to talk about like, oh, they're playing both sides and this and that. Well, of course they are. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? Carol Quigley describes it in why voting isn't what you think it is. They want you to pick a tribe, right? They want you to pick a side, right? Let's read the Carol Quigley thing real quick because it's going to come up a bunch of times, and then we'll watch the Dunning thing and I'll explain that. The argument that the two parties should represent opposing ideals and policies, one perhaps many, of the right and left is a foolish idea accepted only to doctrine and academic thinkers. Instead, the two parties should be almost identical so that the American people can throw the rascals out at any election without leaving any profound or extensive shifts in policy. Okay, so he also goes into grave detail to show you that at the bottom root of most political things, they're the same. There's certain things that are the same. They are the same. Like, when in doubt, zoom out. So let's look at the Dunning-Kruger effect. I'll see, and it's also insulting to some people, but I don't know. I've been in this position. I'm in this position now, which is why I'm not talking about certain things. But I'm seeing the people that are overly zealous on some of this subject. I'm just like, when did you figure this out? Like, when did you start thinking about this? And you start realizing, oh, you're on the top part of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And you're consumed with the inversion. Okay? So play the Dunning-Kruger thing, Manny, from where we were. Yes, it's a form of dualism, 100% post. That's what they're always going to play on. They're never going to give you a third options. Go ahead, play it.
Plotting one's confidence in your ability against one's actual knowledge in a field. As we learn something new, we are often highly confident because we know so little that as soon as we know a tiny bit, we think we know it all. Those who stop learning here maintain a false sense of mastery. Those who continue learning realize things are more complex and often lose motivation. And the more they increase their knowledge, the lower their confidence becomes. Many stop at this stage, thinking they've learned nothing. Only if we keep going can we regain confidence while getting better. And at the end, we will be full of knowledge and almost as confident in our ability as right after we started. In other words, if a simpleton, a good student, and a wise teacher were to have a public debate, this is how things could go down. The simpleton knows just a little bit, but is very confident and voices his opinions loud and without hesitations. The student knows more, but doesn't realize it because she lacks confidence. She keeps quiet. The teacher is confident, but understands how complex things really are.
Who wins the debate?
Hence voices his opinions with reservations. In the end, the simpleton wins the popular vote because he is so confident about being right, and people tend to trust certainty.
Leave that just in case we have to go back to it. You don't have to leave it on the screen, man. You could take it down. Right there, who wins? The simpleton. How does most of the stuff online work? I've been in that position when I first started talking about stuff, and I realized how little I knew, and I don't want to go out there and give my opinion. The video that I dropped last week with Bishop Gerasim, when he was a priest, and he talks about a gathering of knowledge and going out there, and this is before the online Orthodox explosion, going out there and preaching and then telling parishioners you can't take Holy Communion because you didn't do the Jesus prayer all day long, or correcting priests or this and that. It's the same sort of thing. So with this Dunning-Kruger thing, it sounds like I'm insulting people and saying, well, I know so much. I don't. I'm actually at the bottom end of that curve where I'm like, I realize how little I know about certain things, so I started to shut up. But then what I find dangerous is very much the trick that, by the way, someone mentioned Hegelian dialectic. The Hegelian dialectic it comes right out of the Hermeticism. Hegel was a Hermeticist, very deep into it. That literally is what you need to do. You have to create this false dichotomy. It's an absolute divide and conquer tactic that becomes so powerful that people make a cliche out of it, and they don't really think about how they're stuck in it. When in doubt, zoom out. I read the Quigley quote. He basically is saying that make the illusion that these two parties have different platforms, but ultimately at the base root, they have the same platform. So that way, whatever changes are made in that 4-year process, and if you're in a country that has a 4-year election cycle, whatever changes you make, well, if they're specific to the party, they're not going to stick because the next person comes in, they change them. But ultimately, the two parties agree on certain things. So this is where I'm afraid to go any further because I don't want to piss people off. So if someone's like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about, I'll be like, I agree. That's why I'm not talking about it. You know what I mean? And I wanted to have a panel on these subjects with other people that know a lot more than I do. But I'm kind of like, should I even do this? Because I don't want to piss people off. Like, that's not what I want SOS to be. In fact, I love a lot of my friends who have opposing views than I do. What is everyone saying? Does duality end in nihilism? I think so, Post says. Thank you. Only the Trinity provides closure. Yeah, dualism, it does lead to a form of nihilism, and then apathy, and then, like, what's the point of living? Because you're stuck in the sorcerer's circle. It's a common trick used in Hermeticism, right? It's a common trick used in nudge theory that I talked about earlier, Cass Sunstein. That is the dichotomy, like how you play objectivism versus subjectivism, and how you play all this stuff, and why I brought up all the things that I've been bringing up. Devils in the details used to be called gods in the details. Both statements are true depending on how you look at them. We have, and then the reason why I believe and I agree with the Trinity provides closure, I agree with that statement fully, Post. I like that you put that, is because what it does for me is it gives me a GPS on all of us if we want to go closer and closer to theosis as possible as we can and become saints. You have to have your GPS coordinates accurate so that you can get there to the destination. And the only GPS coordinates is understanding the triune God, which is why I said earlier, we have a knowable God. We have a God that is not some nebulous blob of something that you can make whatever you want. We have an objective God in the sense that there's an identity to God. We understand that. We can understand that clearly. And how do you want proof that that's the way? For me, well, when I do things according to the church, when I do things according to my prayer rule and try to keep things right, I'm not always good at it. Like, I'm really suck at it. I'm not always good. I suck at it. I'll just be honest with you guys. Don't look at me for that ever. But when I do it as best as I can assure you, I feel something that I've never felt in my entire life. A presence of something like I guess that's how I'm starting to understand when I'm in hell, is like when I'm disconnected from God, when I'm disconnected from the personal God that I can get on my hands and knees at any moment to ask for his help. And I can ask for help from many to intercede. Things don't get easier. In fact, they get harder, but it's this feeling of like, I'm on the right track. It feels like home. And when I step away from that, I can't even explain why things I normally would have enjoyed in the past, I can't enjoy anymore. And everything becomes so nihilistic and then apathetic. And then I'm just like, what's the point of living? Like, I feel that when the description of hell given from the Orthodox perspective makes sense to me that way. Like, you're so in the presence of God, or you deny his so much that you put yourself in the state of hell. So how this all fits with the Dunning-Kruger thing and all that stuff is the further we get away from understanding what this is all about, the more we go down this path of disconnectedness of that creates this nihilistic feeling, which later turns into apathy and then worse, based on the fact that you're put in the sorcerer's circle, which is based on a dualistic system. Like I kept bringing up nudge theory. I've explained it the best way I can do so is by the example given from the book, Nudge Theory, and the way subjectivism versus objectivism functions in any conversation you may have had on the subject. Basically, what happens is a waiter comes to the table and asks you, are we having white wine today or red wine today, guys? Now, everybody in their head will make a decision. They won't even be considering other decisions unless they don't drink alcohol, and they'll be like, well, I don't drink alcohol. You didn't ask me if I wanted. That person might. But if you're walking to a table where people drink alcohol, and that's how you get out of the sorcerer's circle, is you realize, wait, there are other options. You just gave me the options you want me to pick from, but you're not giving me all of the options. You're giving me this form of cognitive dissonance where you're constantly contradicting yourself in the news or in conversations, which creates a tired form of my, your frontal cortex, which is the part that you identify yourself with, and it's the part of you that gives you deep thoughts, because it's where you acknowledge consciousness. If I take that out of the loop, then you become like a zombie. And that's how they get you, right? So all this, put it together, I'm just avoiding some of the stuff. When in doubt, zoom out. Okay. All right. If what I just said is true, and you guys can clearly see that there's a trick being played that is by design, that is always looking for your attention, is causing you cognitive dissonance to be more suggestible, creating you to become an addict of data so that you go out there and argue with people and you think your opinion is so important, and you got to post about it and you got to talk about it and then you got to argue about it and all that stuff. Because I'm helping people, these kinds of things. Well, it's when you zoom out, you find out, are you making a change? Are you helping people? Why are you doing this? And there are people that are doing this. Like, I'm not discounting a lot of people. I watch a lot of content online. I provide content online. I create content online. I'm just trying to figure out how I fit into this trap. When in doubt, zoom out. Okay. I'm pausing because there's a very clear examples of this happening right now, but I don't want to piss people off. And those that will get pissed off, they'll be the ones. They'll go and do a stream. I'm not talking about anyone in the chats or anything like that. Not at all. Everyone that I've associated with through the study of stuff in the last 7 months have been phenomenal people. And I'm not saying that to anyone else. I'm saying it even to myself, some stuff I've done in the past, some things that I want to do sometimes. Like, I'm asking myself why I want to have this one panel on. I'll talk about myself. So is there an ego connected to it? Maybe there is. Is there like wanting to get into this argument and fight with people? Yeah, maybe there is. Is it to educate people and give people a different perspective? Maybe it is. So the panel I would have liked to have, I could still put it together, would be from people that been calling out stuff for a long time. Okay? So therefore, I can even just on that, like, I don't agree with everything they have to say. Sounds like an open challenge, mate. Now, I'm not challenging you, Jason, at all. That's not, it's not even about you. And there's a lot of things I appreciate about you and other people. Is like, they ask good questions, they change their opinions, and they move with it. They're just kind of trying to figure out what's really going on. I have no issue with anyone like that. Okay? I don't have any issue with any of these people. I'm just trying to provide like a new way of looking at this. So I'll go back to me. So the panel I was thinking about doing, but I'm not going to, because I don't want to create this argument, is from people that have had like a long, good track record on a lot of this stuff that called out a lot of things. On that, and do I agree with all of them? No. And I can give examples of each name I give things I don't agree with. Huge things, mostly God stuff, on faith and this and that. I would have James Corbett. I would have Derek Brose. I would have Whitney Webb. I would have Cyprian from the Royal Path on there. I would have Jay Dyer, depending on where the conversation would go. That would be an interesting one right there to have those 5 people. Now, I'll stick to the easier ones. Like, I'm like asking myself, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I'm getting upset with what I see online? Do I want to show what I know? No, I don't want to show what I know because I don't even want to talk about this stuff. I don't even want to discuss this stuff. And I'm actually questioning what I do know. So no, it's not that. Am I getting tired of people, like being so... What I'm tired of is people being so sure about subjects that are definitely not sure. Like, there's no way you can be sure because the people that know way more than you are not sure. How are you sure? That part I get bothered by. I also get bothered by when people are stuck in the minutia of the details and they get stuck in this. So whatever argument you give, but this person did this, or but this person said that. And you're like, dude, that's not even the point. Like you're missing the point. I get annoyed at that. The one I get annoyed at the most is like someone... Look, I have a lot of love for a lot of people online there. So like, and I respect their work and I I gear people towards their work. So it's not an attack on someone you think, oh, he's talking about so-and-so. Believe me, you don't exactly know who I'm talking about. If someone actually mentions the name, I'll be very surprised and I'll actually admit it. But there's no way you're going to guess it. It's not like Jim Bob. It's not Andrew. It's not Jay Dyer. It's not Jason. It's not people like that, okay? It's not people like that. But I've seen this one person have a discussion with an atheist person, and then they were doing really well, and they were clearly annoyed at the fact that the atheist was never answering their question and was changing the subject when they realized they were being put up against the wall. Okay, so this person that was arguing for God, he was definitely annoyed by this, as he should be, and he wasn't letting down. When questioned, that same person, when they were questioned about certain things that they believe in terms of political stuff and all this stuff, they did the same thing to me. They realized I was putting them in a corner, but I was telling them I'm putting them in a corner. I'm going to be like, it's not me you got to disagree with. You got to disagree with the and I gave a list of names and all this stuff. And that person did exactly what they were annoyed by with the atheist that they were talking about. They changed the subject on me, and they straw man. I'm like, but you're not answering my question. You know what I mean? And then it went to, well, but what about this thing here? You know, that kind of thing. I was like, okay, well, that's cool. Like, I don't want to do that. So what I'm saying is, there's nothing wrong with asking questions and, you know, making content about that and trying to figure your way around that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's what I'm kind of trying to do, and this and that. But how does this work with the Hegelian dialectic? How does this work with the Hermeticist argument that I gave last week versus the orthodox argument? Well, I went to the source. I zoomed out. When in doubt, zoom out. I just zoomed out and I said, look, here's what Hermeticism stands for. Here's what orthodoxy stands for. Here's the backstories of the two. Which one does it seem is more satanic? And it's very clear and hard for someone to disagree with that. So when in doubt, zoom out. Why am I avoiding this so much? Because I just don't understand how anyone is falling for some of these weird things that I see out there. And I don't want to be specific because, like, it's going to piss people off. And I'm not trying to do that. That's why I want to have those guys on there to talk, and they can break it down to a science. And they were right about a lot of things way before people figured out what was going on, like way before. And the whole thing with black pill versus white pill is 100% a psyop. It's right out of their books. It's clearly the dialectic. They inverted what a white pillar is and a black pillar. So when I hear someone called black pill, James Corbett did an amazing episode on Solutions Watch where he breaks this down. Go watch that. James Corbett is a champ and a half. I wish he was orthodox, but he's not. And his description of what's going on and the people he got to talk about it, all big names. People I agree with, some of them things I don't agree with. And the inversion is this. So I almost want to get James to say it so I'm not the one saying it. Manny, should I get James to say it so I'm not the one saying it? Manny's like, I don't care what you do, dude. Let's see. All right. Here, I found it. Okay. And I wasn't doing this for this reason. Oh boy, people are jumping in. What's up, Slow Boy? What's up, Mela? I kind of don't want to put this all out there, but I guess I have to. When in doubt, zoom out. I'll let James Corbett say it. Okay, you know what? Maybe I won't. I'll just say, if you disagree with this statement, that's cool. You can go debate with people that have been at this for a very long time, that have called things along the way. Like I said earlier, I credit James Corbett and Jay Dyer for introducing me to Carol Quigley, a few others. It's very clear from reading Quigley and others like that, what voting really is and what it's all about. To think that they haven't gamed the system and that they're stupid is stupid. So the whole idea of creating us versus them goes way back from the term conspiracy, maybe even before that, the term conspiracy theorist being invented. So people that were questioning the JFK stuff would be called that. You guys all know this. You guys are good students of many greats out there that have taught you all that. Creating this dichotomy of like East versus West and the communist versus capitalist. And when we know really behind the scenes, one helps the other. We also know that's straight out of all the writings of anyone from the Round Table societies. Okay, even ones that I don't hear anyone talking about, not just the Fabian Society, but a few others. It's been very clear that they've always done this because ultimately those three things, communism, capitalism, and fascism, work hand in hand for the overall goal. What goal am I referring to? The ones that we know from H.G. Wells, the one that we know from the birth of the UN, what's being described in 1984, why Brave New World is about creating apathy, all that stuff. We know this. We have we have good knowledge in this. Then they start the whole, like I said, reason why I brought up Occupation Wall Street and the truckers thing was those were grassroots movements. So was the anti-war thing in the 60s, and then it was commandeered by the social engineers to introduce LSD and the whole counterculture thing to use that organic anti-war movement against itself as well as in the favor of the ruling elite. They didn't stop all this stuff. This didn't stop, okay? We didn't just start getting stupid politicians out of nowhere, and people actually watch stupid politicians say stupid things, and they're like, oh, look how stupid this person is, or look how stupid that person is. It doesn't make any sense. These people know you better than you know yourself, so they're using you. You're getting tricked. You're getting manipulated. So I said, when in doubt, zoom out. What do they want? What have they wanted since... I mean, we can go really way back, but how about we just go from after post-World War II? Do you think, did they want a communism versus capitalism argument? No. They just needed the capitalists to fund the jail for the communists to create their dictatorship situation, okay? And they're going to use fascism, which is corporatism, and governance working together, which is what we kind of live in today, to be able to build this situation to hand it over to the technocrats. So you guys probably are well versed in technocracy. You guys know all about technocracy. It's an old movement. It's nothing new, but their goals. When in doubt, zoom out. When in doubt, zoom out. When they doubt, zoom out. When in doubt, zoom out. What did they want, the technocrats? Well, they wanted a society run by technology and by experts and not by politicians or this and that. They're clear on that. It's exactly why during COVIDs you were told to trust the experts. So this is where it's all coming from. They're the ones that govern things. It's not nations. It's not governments. It's none of that stuff. What else do they want? Well, they want this technocratic state thing to be global, to run itself on something like, H.G. Wells describes the global brain type of situation, where you also hearing this rhetoric. They want a version of programmable money, and they want to take money out of people's hands. This is from the 30s. This is not yesterday's stuff, right? They want total and full surveillance so that they know your purchasing power, your purchasing choices. They want to know how you think and all that stuff. This is written from back in those days, okay? Again, where are we seeing all this stuff, right? We haven't even talked about the narrative of flipping an anti-hero. How does a Satanist become a Satanist? How does a Luciferian become a Luciferian? They flip the anti-hero. They invert the hero, make an anti-hero the hero. Why? Well, Lucifer wants you to just be the best you can be. What's wrong with being happy? What's wrong with being happy? Shouldn't you be happy? You should be happy. And I can help you get happy. I can help you improve yourself. Make the better you. It's all about that. That's Luciferianism at its stripped down McDonald's version of manifesting these things to make you the better you. Find it in feminism, find it in all the isms. You invert the hero and you make the anti-hero the hero. Isn't that also exactly what is described in Revelation and how Antichrist situation is going to happen? Right? Right? You're nudged. Like I said earlier, you nudge which wine you want, right? You nudge the people that way. Back to technocracy. When in doubt, zoom out. So they want programmable money. They want experts to be ruling things. They want things governed by a global brain, AI, whatever which way you want to look at that, all about that. They want to know your purchasing power. They want to know your purchasing choices. They want to help add credit to things like carbon credits and all that stuff. Technocracy Inc. was a legitimate company and business and a movement that started in Canada and the U.S. They all debate who and how. What is his name? Hugo Scott started it with Elon Musk's grandfather, 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 who was also part of, when he didn't like some of the technocratic stuff, Elon Musk's grandfather, Elon Musk's grandfather, Elon Musk's grandfather. He went off and he started the social credit score system in Canada. Elon Musk's grandfather. Can we see any of this technology being applied? Can we see that both parties want the same goal? When they tricked you on Occupy Wall Street, so this stream won't make any sense unless you go back and you kind of hear some of my jibber jabbers. I apologize, but I mentioned Occupy Wall Street was an organic thing. The anti-war movement in the 60s was an organic thing that later on, when they saw leftists, rightists, centralists, and human beings of all types, they didn't care if they were gay. They didn't care if they wanted to chop things off. They didn't care if they were pro, fascism or anything. They didn't care. They all got together and said, you know whose fault it is? It's those guys' fault. Everybody on the planet pointed at that one area where the problem was, and that was the banking elite. They were just them. That's the problem. So all of a sudden, I went to some of those things. You had communists right next to a staunch capitalist marching side by side saying, no, that's a problem. Is a very big problem. What kind of a problem are we talking about? A global problem. Human beings were united on one thing. Nope, they screwed us. Okay? So now, what did they do? The people that create marketing campaigns, the people that create nudge theory, the people that know your behavioral psychology way better than you do. Like, I'm literally feeling it now as I'm doing this. I could feel the how I've been nudged to want to do this. And why am I doing this? Like, I'm feeling it now. I'm just like everybody else. We're all lab rats, man. So now, what did they do? Well, they changed the campaign. 1%. They started to switch that, right? Now, the 1% to the left means something different to the right. They took that slogan, changed it. It was no longer like, who are you identifying here? Right? And then what they also did is like, listen, we can't get these monkeys to pick a side anymore because they realize it's not capitalism versus communism. Damn it, they realized that. They realize it's not the poor versus this guy. It's not man versus woman. It's not black versus white. They figured it out. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, you know what people really don't like is when they're told that they're a victim. True. Now, how do we get them to feel victimized? What if they're just not part of that victim thing? We create identity politics. We focus on their identity. So they go back to what they are, not who they are. So all of a sudden they're focused on what they are. What are they? Are they man? Are they woman? Are they black? Are they white? Are they this? Are they that? Now all of a sudden that ideology becomes a religion for both sides. And it's how they realized we can never have another Occupy Wall Street. And then right after all that, you started to see the play of identity politics creeping up. Right? And then I'll fast forward, you see the exact same pattern versus like anti-shangalanga ding-dongs in your arm versus pro that. Lockdown people, the narrative, like the generic narrative you got from generic people versus all of a sudden you have this fantastic distinction, what and who. Is that actually made by Jim Bob? Is that Jim Bob for real? If it is, what's up? Welcome, my dear brother. So all of a sudden, they need you to they need you to have. Where was I? Damn it, I lost track. Yeah, they need you to concentrate on the what you are, because it's easily manipulated. It's easy to bring you into that fold of that religion, because if what you are is like so attached to the fact that like I'm a Greek white guy, this and that, all they have to do is play me on some Greek subject and white subject, and then I get sucked down and I get pulled into this whole little cyclone of arguing. Okay, so what ends up happening is that you create this, you created all that. You have the COVIDs happen. You have the stuff that we were talking about earlier, cognitive dissonance. They're not stupid. When they were telling you false information, that was intentional to create this whole thing. But when in doubt, zoom out. When you look at what's happening around us today, what are they trying to avoid you from doing? They want you to focus on what this political party did or this political person did. And they want to say, don't you see a better improvement in your life? And you're like, yes, I do. Should you like ignore that? No, you should not ignore that, right? Like I've said before, if I was an American, I would vote. It's the only time I would vote if I was an American, because local politics actually have power and things happen on the local level in the US. That's not the case in most countries. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about American politics and elections is that nothing else. So what they want you to do is do everything except for build around you. Create something that you can take to support God, the list, God, family, community, those three things. That you must avoid these things. So when in doubt, zoom out. If you look at what's happening now, and like I said earlier, I read that the Carol Quigley's quote. Can we see that? We can definitely see that. Both sides of the parties want the same end goal. They just changed the marketing campaign. Like I said with Occupy Wall Street, they changed the campaign and made it about the individuals fighting. So let's fast forward to the truckers. So for anyone that didn't hear what I said about the truckers, was an organic thing, and it's not because I'm Canadian. It was the only time I was ever proud to be Canadian, was that, and it had nothing to do with Canada. It had to do with humanity actually doing something in a really chill way. So what ends up happening there is they saw that, again, people put aside certain things that they disagreed on, and they agreed on one thing. They did not want to be forced to do things in Canada. You know what all those things are, and that they were going to do something about it. So they got together and did something about it. That was a problem, a huge problem, because it created a worldwide movement. So people still to this day overlook certain things that happened during that time and what kind of power it shows that humanity has and had, right? So what I'm getting at is they had to change that narrative and flip it on itself and use marketing campaign again to get you to fight each other, to concentrate on what you are, not who you are. One really interesting way that everything got separated is, sorry, I'm just jumping around all over the place because I want to get to some sort of point here, is you had like the people that were for the narrative and then people that were against the narrative. And those two groups were big. So they may agree on some things, but not all things, right? So then they got the one group that was anti the narrative to split. And that was when they created the situation in the Middle East. All of a sudden, people that were calling against cancel culture were now bringing cancel culture back into it and all that stuff. Then you started to create a fragment. That group, that big group, was the one that was behind a lot of the stuff that you saw organically happening with the truckers. What I'm getting at, where I started at, where I was talking about the difference between God is in the details and the devil's in the details, those two things still stand true to me. And for those that have just tuned in, I'll explain it again. It used to be called the God is in the details, and then it was changed to the devil's in the details. The reason why God in the details is true, it's how you get to, if someone wants to get into figuring out God or anything in general, from a scholastic standpoint, they're going to go research, they're going to gather information, they're going to keep trailing. If they're interested in truth, they're going to keep trailing and finally get to the difficult problem in science and consciousness studies is what is consciousness, the hard problem. And that's when you get the beginnings of people actually going, okay, where do my thoughts come from, this and that, which is where you get the tag argument, right? So someone can get there and understand God through just knowledge, which is not exactly the Gnostic standpoint, but someone might point to that. But I'll make connection to the devil in the details is the Gnostic approach. You will end up at God if you start asking yourself, who's asking these questions in my head? Where's this all coming from? Okay. Then they change it to the devil's in the details, which is also true. And it's where we find ourselves in our trap currently in many different subjects. And that is, well, the devil's in the details is also true because all you have to do is just talk about all the details of like what this political party did and that political party did, or what what Protestants did over here and what Orthodox did over here, and you just start getting stuck in the data regurgitation cycle where you're just like, well, this data point, that data point, data, and then two people that don't want to come to a conclusion on an understanding will just constantly keep arguing and fighting and never do anything about it and never come up with a solution. So I am working towards the white pill versus black pill thing in just a second, if that made sense. Again, to anyone that's tuning in, I'm doing this because of the conversation I had with Buck on Counterflow, where I clearly showed that Hermeticism must be demonic from their own books, their own accounts. So now, with the nudge theory, we had like the white wine, the red wine, and then the third option, well, I don't want wine. Well, someone might say that well, are you saying researching and telling people what you've learned and having open conversation, dialogues, or debates, you're saying that that's pointless? Not at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. I guess it goes back to my other comment. Not everybody should comment about stuff. People that know what they're doing, how to do it, and have good intentions should do that stuff. Have people come to Christ and to the church through those channels? Absolutely. Did it help me? 100%. Does it still help me? It does. When I'm listening to the right person with the right intention, having that conversation. So it does have value. The thing is, the person having those conversations and the person that's listening to those conversations has to ask themselves, why am I doing this? Like, what am I doing this for? Is it just to gather information so I can spit it out someone's face at Thanksgiving? Or is it so I can actually do something about it and better myself, have better practice, be able to explain God to someone that genuinely has an interest? And they're like, I'm Protestant. I heard some of this Orthodox stuff. I don't understand what you guys mean about this. And now, because you've watched a lot of that content, you can explain it to that person. That person, you should definitely engage with that person. I don't know if Jim Bob is still in the chats, but you had some dude on a couple days ago, I can't remember, Robot or something, or Raw, I don't remember his name, and he was like a Protestant giving like really basic Protestant arguments, and you guys were both even laughing at your style where it's kind of like poking fun at him, but you're not, and it was a really good conversation, and you could tell that guy and then Jim Bob ends it by telling him to find a local church to go and check it out, and that person has nothing to lose or whatever by going and doing that. That to me is worth having those conversations. And I'm not saying it like my opinion matters. I said it's okay. I'm just saying you see the fruits of that, the outcome of that conversation. You see how it went. You see that person, I can't remember his name, so forgive me. You could see that person was actually listening to what Jim Bob was saying, and that he had planted seeds in his mind, Jim Bob that is, and Yvonne too, in the mind of the guy who he's going to go after and think about these things, and he might actually walk into a church. Okay? I'm not against that. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying, when in doubt, zoom out, or black pill versus white pill, and that being an inversion. If you're just tuned in, you may not know what I'm talking about because you didn't catch the beginning. But when in doubt, zoom out. Look, we're in a trap of sorts for sure, all of us, and that's for sure. Just based off the conversation and that stuff that I was talking about on Counterflow, when I went back to some of the Hermeticism stuff and I started seeing that their tactics are very prevalent in everything we do and how we conduct ourselves online, the kinds of conversations we have, the type of arguments we make, and what we do with that information. The Dunning-Kruger thing, when I showed that, well, there's a lot of people saying certain things that are going to get a lot of people in trouble because they're on the top part of that curve. They're not on the lower part. They're definitely not at the end. On certain subjects that I know, some of the guys I mentioned earlier that I'd love to have on to have a panel conversation about this if I ever decide to go that way, have been at this for a long time, and they're on the other end of the Dunning-Kruger effect. They'll tell you, dude, literally Everything you see around you is doesn't matter what political side you've chosen. Some are better than others. Yeah. Can you see benefits on the local level in your community? Yes, you can. Should you care about that? Absolutely, you should totally care about that. But keep your eyes open. Don't fall for any tricks, because when in doubt, zoom out. Like I said earlier, when I had first read the technocratic stuff about technocracy and things in general, and I credit definitely James Corbett, Patrick Wood, great source for that. Back in the day. Of course, in modern times, there's a lot of Orthodox brothers that have talked about it too, in grave detail. Jay Dyer, of course, 100%. He was actually one of the earliest ones. It's funny because I was getting deeply into James Corbett and Jay Dyer at the exact same time. And it's funny, I went down, because they have a lot in common in terms of like what they think, the types of information they put out. But I obviously went far closer to Jay Dyer than I did James Corbett on a lot of stuff. But anyways, when in doubt, zoom out and look at what they're trying to put in front of you as solutions. And if you really look at it, it's very clear as to what's happening, right down to, like this let's all laugh at other people that are stupid thing about 51st state, Canada, Mexico, United States, Greenland, Panama Canal. Where else do you find that exact same pattern, that exact same thought, that exact same theory? Well, in the early technocratic documents on technocracy from Technocracy Inc., you find that same plan there. All of that. They tried to implement it with the Amero. We know that. Anyone that's old school conspiracy theorist remembers how, Agenda 21 and they're gonna make like how they did the European Union. They're gonna do a North American Union. You guys all know this stuff. I'm not telling you stuff you don't already know. When in doubt, zoom out. Why is it that these things that are now presented to you as some sort of a solution were also exactly what was wanted in the 90s with the North American Union, which is also exactly what's described with the 5 continents in 1984, which is also exactly what's described in technocratic documents from the Technocracy Inc., from, again, Elon Musk's grandfather, from that standpoint. Like, it's weird. If you just write down, just like I did with Hermeticism and who is Hermes, and clearly he's a fallen angel, and I gave all those, and I broke it all down, and I wrote it down, and then you have on the other side orthodoxy, and you look at the two, you could see it's clear in inversion, one over the other. It's clear. There's no denying that, right? The same thing here. If you just write down what they all want, and you look at the people that are in place to do it, well, what's the best way to nudge people to pick red wine over white wine? Well, you give certain incentives for the red wine over the white wine. So now if someone really likes white wine, they might choose the red wine because maybe it's cheaper. Or maybe, they want to be a contrarian, and someone that they hate likes red wine. They're like, a white wine. They're like, you know what, I'm going to try red wine today, so that way they don't order a white wine bottle and everyone has to drink red wine. And it could be these things, because that is literally how a lot of this politics does work. It's how they get people to do things. And there's the good example in, I don't remember the study, but if someone's interested, I could find it. Done, John Rawling Rees from the Tavistock Institute, about taking a hero, making him the anti-hero, and making the anti-hero the hero, and flipping the two, which is literally how we would view the story of the devil versus God, right? So people that are so could we see that might be the case here, where they've created a nudge situation where people are nudged to make a decision so that they can achieve the ultimate goal that they all want to do. And the best way to do it is reverse psychology and be like, don't smoke. I smoked. Someone told me not to smoke. That's kind of pretty basic and how it works. So where does this ultimately take me? Well, what's the solution here? If you're going to have these arguments and these battles, whether it's about Hermeticism versus orthodoxy, whether it's about political stuff that we're talking about here, well, when in doubt, zoom out. And do you see a solution here? Well, if you do, how do you get people to be against, the operation, the Occupy Wall Street? Well, you change about who they are and you make it about what they are and you make them fight. So you create identity politics. How do you stop the whole thing with the trucker thing? Well, you saw how that all played out, right? People completely forgot about what the outcome of that whole thing was and what it did worldwide and created, a lot of countries and people stood up. Well, how would you do it now if you wanted to make the anti-hero flip? Well, you invert the word black pill and white pill. If anti-vaxxer doesn't work anymore, if woke versus whatever doesn't work anymore, well then wouldn't it just be easier to say that the white pill is the black pill and the black pill is the white pill? And then why is it that everyone's using the same slogan? Isn't that a sure sign described by many people if you want to identify a psyop, is like you see both sides using the same phrasing and have totally different meaning with it? Isn't that also the Luciferian way of making things subjective? Isn't that the Hegelian dialectic, not the Hegelian dialectic, sorry, the sorcerer's circle and using dialectics against each other? Isn't that nudge theory, giving two choices and then not even telling them what the other thing is? Well, when I hear what people are calling black pilled now, again, go check out the names I mentioned earlier. They have some really good, I'll just stick to the point. So black pilled now means that if I don't agree in the selection process, which again, I read from Quigley, again, shout out to Jay Dyer, shout out to James Corbett for introducing me. And he clearly states what election selections really are. So the person that's calling a person black pilled now, what they mean is, oh, well, you got to trust the system. We're going to change it from the inside out. We have all this power and this control. We're going to do this through legislation and all that stuff. Well, if you look at the writings of the people that know way more than any of us do, that know how the world works, who have documented this stuff, from Brzezinski to Kissinger to Carol Quigley, and so on and so forth, and all the technocrats, they literally are telling you that the system, you can't really make changes you can on a local level in the US only, but you can on the grand chessboard, chose those words purposefully, and that ultimately both parties kind of want the same end goal, where they just rebranded the whole greater reset to like different terminology. So it's no more CBDCs, and trust me, if you're new to this, you'll start seeing a new term popping up. It's called tokenization deposits. That is actually CBDCs on crack, and many things about that. I don't want to get into the details again. It's going to, people are going to, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Look, what about this, and that? The point is, if you look at what they both want, when in doubt, zoom out. They both want the same sort of type of control system. They both want you to avoid the fact that you have the power to make a difference on a local level, not on your local level, right? They want to avoid, people actually out there creating things and systems, not in the dark, like let's get off grid. And I'm not talking about that. I've been down that road. I've seen that here in Mexico. I'm talking about like real things, real change, like the truckers protest. That was real, right? They want you to be stuck in this hamster wheel, going around and around, arguing and bringing up this point and that point. Devil's in the details. Get stuck in there, and just argue before you notice what's really happening, so that you can go and you can cast your selection for whatever, and you think that that's how it's going to go. Now, would I have voted if I was in the U.S.? Yes. Probably would have been the very first time I voted in my whole life. Am I saying be an anarcho-capitalist? Absolutely not. Am I saying be a libertarian? Definitely not. None of that stuff. It's total crap. I'm not going to agree with that stuff. Would I have voted? I would have, because on a local level, like I said, it makes a difference. Also, it buys me time, because I would rather the person that's there now rather than the other option, 100%. All I'm getting at is zoom out, see what they want. It's all the same thing. So what's the third option if you don't want wine, white wine or red wine? I don't want any wine. So what does that mean? Opt out of the system? No, I don't mean that. I mean the orthodox approach. The only thing I've ever seen that's ever functioned around the world, and you can clearly see it under Ottoman rule, was the way that the Orthodox Church did things. Longest running empire, greatest. I'm preaching to the choir. You guys all know all the stats. Well, the reason why is because they had Symphonia. They had church and state working together. It was a monarchy based on that. Okay, so there's the checks and balances there. It actually is decentralized because the Orthodox Church is decentralized. So it's literal, true, actual decentralization. Okay, and then that system is the only way that it could work. Now, can you get that to happen? No, you can't. Am I making a political argument? I'm really not. I'm making a philosophical, not even that at all. Anyways, I'll end it where I started it. I started saying that after doing the talk that I had on counterflow with Buck and looking at Hermeticism from the approach I took, which is just going to source documents and identifying who is Hermes, who's Hermes Trismegistus, who's Thoth, what are their ultimate belief systems, and then from there, not getting bogged down in all the details, because anyone that wants to watch that and be like, well, you didn't mention Rosicrucianism, you didn't mention this and that, those are the details. The point is, the source documents tell you their description of how they view God and what it is. They describe how to fool people and manipulate people. And then the Orthodox approach is they're clearly inverting the Orthodox approach. And I give arguments for that. After that conversation and talk, I definitely felt an uptick in what I would say, and I'm careful to say it, spiritual warfare. It's been an interesting week. Certain things I can't really explain. But it also just reminded me that everything that's going out there, if someone really believes this is a spiritual warfare, I do, and I know a lot of you guys do too, well then look at it as a spiritual warfare. I'm not giving you advice, I'm just saying when in doubt, zoom out. And when you zoom out and you look at everything that's occurring, you always get caught in the details. So I ask, well, why did they change God is in the details to devil's in the details, which I mentioned earlier? Why did they invert that? Are both statements true? Depending on how you look at it, depending on who you consider God to be. For us, it's pretty clear and obvious. And if you're looking at it from this sorcerer's circle situation of creating dialectics and creating all this stuff, what is the end goal? When in doubt, zoom out. Zoom out and look at the end goal of what we're seeing around us. And if it kind of leads everyone in the direction that's wanted by these people that we criticize and don't like, well, then maybe we should think about those things. I don't mean tap out of society, just to be clear. I don't mean that if someone has a different opposing view to anything I just said right now, that there's a lot I agree with people when I hear them talking about some of the stuff that they talk about. But then I realize, okay, I'm at the part of the Dunning-Kruger effect where I'm at the bottom. I'm kind of not sure what I know about some of these subjects. I was the guy that was preaching and talking crazy stuff back in the day. And I'm definitely not at the point where I'm an expert of anything, so I'm choosing to just keep my mouth shut. But what the things that I definitely do know is looking at this play that I described. And I clearly can see it in a lot of the things I see people being sidetracked on things that are political right now and on a spiritual level too. So the reason why I brought up some of the positive debates and the conversations. Oh, I see Ivan's in the house too. What's up, brother? Good to see you. Orthodox Boomer Grandma, good to see you. Screwed Up, what up? Good to see you, man. I did mention, Ivan, yours and Jim Bob's conversation with that guy that jumped on, the Protestant guy, and I really liked how you guys handled that. And I think those are positive examples, similar to the conversation we had with John Mondragon and his father Paul when they were on our convo with Mano, and the way that conversation went. I think there's positive in those things. I think the point I'm trying to make is don't get caught in the hamster wheels, and this is what I'm telling myself. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I know people just say that, but no, I'm literally telling that myself. That's why I'm trying to be careful with what I say more now than ever, and what kind of content I put out now more than ever, because I'm not sure what my intentions are. I have to assume on some level that it is ego driven. I have to assume on some level I'm not doing it for the right reasons. I have to be honest with myself. And I just try to figure out where that is, work with my spiritual father and be like, does this sound like I should say this or shouldn't say this? Also, there's a lot of things that I don't really know the clear answer. But I do know that the person that's giving a clear answer doesn't know what the answer is either. That I guarantee it. You know what I mean? And I see it because if I put some of those people in the same panel as, like, you know, some of the people I named, pointing out some weird edict or weird thing like that, or like, bypassing people's track records and where they come from, isn't going to work. It isn't going to work because they're going to say, yeah, but look at where this is going. This is leading in this direction. So I don't know. I think now I'm just officially rambling. Let me just see if there's any interesting things in the chats. For you guys, anyone that's tuning in right now, honestly, this wasn't a planned conversation. It was a ramble-thon. Black pill, white pill. I'd rather have gotten James Corbett to answer that question. I should have brought that video up and have him explain it. Whether you like Naomi Klein or not, have her explain it. She does a good job of it too. And a number of people that have been calling things out for a very long time that are not new to a lot of the subjects, they'll all point to this and be like, if you look at what someone means when they say you're black pilled now, again, it depends if they're left or right, because it does change. Again, if you ever see that, right? If you ever see that, always know that there's something afoot. Behavioral psychology is at foot. They're using you against each other. It's why they call one side woke and they call the other side awake. That is straight up nudge theory. That is straight up behavioral psychology. There is nothing about that that's organic. There's a reason why they call it woke and awake. There's a direct reason. So if you're talking to someone, let's say on the right side of things, and they call you black pill, or they'll call me black pill, they'll call me black pill, they'll call James Corbett black pill, a lot of the names I mentioned earlier. When you ask them what they mean by that, they're like, well, that's what they want you to think. They want you to think don't vote. So that way you don't vote, and then the other person votes. I was like, no, it's not what I'm saying. That's not what a lot of these people are saying. They would say on a local level, vote, that kind of thing. Then they'll say, well, that's exactly what they want. They want you to think you have no power and that you have to work within the system and you have to work within this. And I'm like, aren't you a Jay Dyer fan? Aren't you a James Corbett fan? Aren't you a fan of like a lot of these names that I could mention? Then why are you saying that if they clearly stated for you very clearly? Jay Dyer went into exhaustive detail telling you about Carol Quigley, as James Corbett has as well. The same people that are saying that to me are fans of those people. And I'm like, didn't Quigley tell you clear up and straight up that that's not the goal? Isn't that clearly stated in any round table a conversation you've heard? And I'm not just talking about Cecil Rose's round tables. Isn't that also described in the Theosophical Society on how to create sorcery magic? Isn't that also described by Manly P. Hall? Oh, thank you so very much, Orthodox Boomer Grandma. I love you. Appreciate the love and support. Why is it that we'll quote these people and then when it's not convenient, it's like we forget it and say, oh, now this is an exception. This one guy is an exception. Don't all those documents also talk about flipping an anti-hero and a hero? Isn't that also described in there? And then what do they really want? When you look at what they really want and what they stand for, behind the easy to discuss stuff, if it's the same, well, that means that they both have the same end goal, which is exactly the same end goal as Technocracy Inc., the same end goal as like the United Nations ultimate goal. It's the same end goal as perennialism in the sense that, it's the same goal. So if we just keep marching in that direction, it'll take a little bit longer to get there at best, but we're going in the same direction. So that I'm black-pilled for saying, okay, well, cast your vote. I said I would have done the same thing if I was an American. I can explain why a Canadian's vote doesn't matter, but I think I'm preaching to the choir on that one. Everybody here knows why Canada. Well, I don't know. Do you guys know that the person that's above the prime minister is the governor general who is in direct relation and is part of the crown? Did you guys know that at any point they can just call it a day? Do you guys also know Mark Carney is part of Chatham House rules? Part of Chatham House. Do you guys also know that he worked for the Bank of International Settlements, right? You guys already know that, right? Only Canadian to have been on those boards. What does he want? He wants literally the same thing as some of the other people I'm avoid mentioning who are behind Technocracy Inc. Go look at that. Why is it that they're describing Canada, US, Mexico, Greenland, Panama Canal connected? Then, so you just took something, dusted it off, rebranded it, and selling it to people. So what's the one thing that they don't want? What I would consider the actual white pill, which is cast your vote. Yeah, do what you can do. You know, do you want a good sheriff and mayor in your area in the U.S.? Absolutely, you do, because we saw with the COVIDs, it did matter where you were. It did matter who was in control. It did matter. So yeah, do that. But then at the same time, build community. And I'm not talking about like this cheesy like kumbaya, let's all hold hands and blah, blah. No. I'm not talking about that. I don't even like using the word community because people get the wrong impression. They think I'm talking about like in the middle of nowhere. Someone referred to me as catacomb orthodox. I'm not talking about that, man. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm saying like choose your neighbor. Look at yourself as a forest. You're a healthy tree. You want other healthy trees around you. You want a healthy forest. Do the same thing with the people around you. Now that it's bought you some time and maybe you can get some capital and this and that, start building things that they can't take away from you. I'm not talking about going in the middle of the woods. You could do this in any city you live in. You could do this. I'm saying like, let's look at those types of things. How can you solve some of the problems you see in front of you? And that's what a lot of the people I've mentioned on that list, from Derek Bros to James Corbett, Cyprian from the Royal Path and all this stuff, who have a long background in economics, understanding blockchain, understanding everything I'm talking about. Some of them actually worked on the actual block. Some of them currently work on blockchain. They're not just talking about it. You know what I mean? And a lot of them have done deep research in this stuff for a long time. Many of them is how I knew that the COVIDs was going to happen. Not because I'm some sort of prophet. I just knew it was. So these same people are telling me to watch out for these malakis. Well, I'm going to listen for the very same fact that some of the people that are telling me to not listen to these people that are calling me black-pilled are the same people that didn't see this coming in 2020. So am I going to listen? Like, I'll listen if you make a good point, because some of the points that they have made me go, huh, okay, yeah, I didn't think about that. So I'll be honest, some of them that I don't agree with them, I've listened to them like, oh, that's a good point. I never thought about that. I never really thought about that. So that's a good suggestion that you've made there. I thought about, but ultimately, for like a long-term like understanding of what's going on, I'm going to go to the cats that have been calling it out for a long time, which is what led me to know that in 2019, as you could ask Manny, I was telling them this Malachias was happening, it was coming, and not just because of that, and it is about the royal path. That's right. Whoever said that, it's all about that. It's not about saying becoming a centrist. It's taking the royal path in the middle. I fully agree with that. And there's sometimes where you have to go. Anyways, back to the point. It's totally sidetracked. So I'm going to go listen to those cats because they're telling me stuff that I'm hearing in the news that I learned from them 20 years ago. Like I learned from them 20 years ago, these things, right? Whether it's James Corbett, Jay Dyer, Patrick Wood, Whitney Webb, like there's a long list. Do they have everything right? No. I could tell you Derek Bros has certain beliefs. I know him personally that I absolutely disagree with vehemently. 100%. But the thing is, these cats, they have a good hold on things, and they're telling you watch out for these traps because they're dangerous. And I'm just telling you, the one thing I do know is, unfortunately, I went down this path of hermeticism. I went but thank God I went into it looking for consciousness. It wasn't for the dark arts. And thank God that I started to see the inversions that got me out of it and led me directly to orthodoxy. Thank God for a lot of the online guys that I've mentioned from Jay onward. And I always start off by saying Mr. Jay Dyer and James Perloff were the first two that made me go, huh, what's going on here? And then, like we're talking about a while ago now, but thank God that it got me there. But the thing is, I do understand that form of hypnosis and psychology, the Hermeticism stuff, because I didn't get into it to understand the history of it. I got into it to understand the practice of it so that I could understand how to use the 7 principles. And I thought it was to better myself and get me closer to what I thought God was. Actually, that was my intention. I wanted to know what consciousness was. But then when I started to realize the dark side of it, which I don't know how I overlooked it, like what was blinded by me, that's cognitive dissonance. That's a messed up thing for sure, man. For sure, that's a messed up thing, because I was reading the stuff that I mentioned in the interview I did with Buck, and it didn't occur to me, this fiery serpent. It didn't occur to me when he's talking about Hermes' ministry done in secrecy. It didn't click into me that Hermes was the trickster god and all this stuff. And I was like, it didn't occur to me that I was literally looking at a fallen angel, angelo, messenger in Greek. It didn't just like click into me. I'm like, Malaka, you're going down the wrong path. It didn't click. Like it was right in front of me. So I do know that stuff. I could see it when I look at psyops things, not because of like I have any. It's straight up Hermeticism. It's straight up that illusion of creating this thing, and it's taught to people in such a manner. It's even why the 7 principles are described the way that they are in little chunks. Okay, there's a reason why it starts off by saying that the lips of wisdom remain closed and only open to the ear of understanding, because you need this in secrecy. You can easily tie in the J's to this, and I did do that, but we're leaving that out there. I'm just saying that I'm seeing it online. I'm seeing it in politics. I'm seeing it, and what I mean online is like how we're all scrapping. Not all of us, but some of us are scrapping. I also see that everyone's being put into these like boxes. Forgive me if I say this, and it pisses anyone off. I'm not like, I really don't care to piss people off in the past. Just trust me. Like, I'm not afraid of that. Believe me, if you talk to me in 2020, 2021, 2019, I'll be all up in your face about stuff. But I'm not afraid of doing that. It's just like, I don't know where I fit in this. So I don't know how to even look at my flaws to understand, to criticize anyone else. But I will say, and please don't get pissed off here, I'll make up a name, Sangalang. When Sangalang just started going out there and, you know, they watched a bunch of debates, they collected a bunch of information. Now they're getting ready to get into that thing, you know, whatever their reasons or, you know, their motives are for doing it. I don't know. That's on them. I don't know if it's ego-based or whatever. But when that person's put in the same category as a Jim Bob or a Jay Dyer or a David Patrick Harry, when it comes on these things, that waters down then that makes it like, that nullifies it, because you're not on the same tier as those 3 gentlemen. You haven't put in the time and work as those 3 gentlemen. You haven't gone into the ring as those 3 gentlemen. And now you're jumping into a place and you're having this conversation with someone that doesn't know David Patrick Harry, Jim Bob, Jay Dyer, whatever, on these subjects. And now you're representing and you're having this stuff. And then you start saying some vlakias, and then you get... Now, you can't put them all in the same category. That's actually in itself a trickery. It is an inversion, right? How do you water down a really good debate that you watch? Dyer goes in and just smashes some guy. You know what I mean? How do you water that down? Well, you put him in the same category as Shangalang over here, who's kind of like just started doing this thing, and you say that they're the same. So then now someone walks into that world and you've just watered it down. The same way when people just started, you know, is there racism? Yes. Have we seen it in history? Absolutely. Now, if you just start calling everything racism, like where I worked at Lush, then all of a sudden it means nothing. All of a sudden, like, okay, yeah, but everything's racism. But now it could be racism. Like there was a situation that I saw like that happen. There was actual racism going on, but because we've heard it so many times and it was shoved down our throats that everything is racism, when I heard it, I was like, yeah, okay, buddy, I'm sure it's racism. Yeah, totally. Yeah, sure. Then in that situation, it was. Same sort of thing happens here. So like the conversation that Jim Bob and Yvonne had with that Protestant guy, that was healthy, man. That was a healthy situation. That guy is going to go to church, whether it's this week or next week or the week after. He's going to go there. And it's going to be based on that conversation, right? That's not the same thing as like, you know, you guys get my point. You guys get my point. So when it comes to like some of the other subjects I'm hearing out there, There's definitely a dear brother that's in the chats. I'm not putting you in that category because I've had conversations with you privately. I've had conversations with you on air. You're actually looking for a truth, cuz. You're not out there just trying to make a statement for the sake of making a statement. You're literally looking for the truth, and you change your opinions based on the information that you see in front of you. That's commendable. That's how it should be. So I'm not criticizing, now I'm trying to excuse anything I said. All I'm just trying to say is the devil is real. His games are for real. They're time immemorial. You can clearly see the pattern going way back from Genesis. You can clearly see that same trickery, that same play is still in front of us. You could see that he can't create anything. All he can do is manipulate God's creation. That's all he can do. So how is he going to do that? He's going to use you against you, right? And then he's going to weaponize you based on things that you're easily susceptible to, whether it's lust, whether it's all the passions. He's going to use that stuff against you. Then he's going to weaponize you and get you out there talking about stuff and being stuck in a hamster wheel, whether it's about faith and, devil's in the details, guy. The devil's in the details. You sit there, look at this, and whether you're talking about like information about the church or you're talking about politics or whatever, if you're going to do nothing about that, if you don't have a solution in mind, you're screwed. Because by the time you see that door is closed and the click goes, you're done. You've done nothing. So this black pill, white pill thing to me is a big malakia. Okay? Because the people that I've heard that are considered black pill knew about the stuff that's going on way before the person calling them black pilled. That's a guarantee. I will bring them all on my show and I'll say, you said this, this, and this back in 2007 and it happened like that. Then I'm going to ask the other person, I'm like, yo, cuz, you want to debate this guy about that subject? Not me, this guy. Because like what you're saying, it doesn't make any sense. The white pill stuff is how the original anti-war movement was going on before it got co-opted and became the counterculture. It's what happened with actual Occupy Wall Street, where you saw a leftist and a capitalist and a white person and a feminist and a this guy and a that guy all identify the person that's the entity that's the problem, and that problem was the bank. And everybody looked at the bank and they didn't care if they were like anarcho-capitalist or an anarcho-communist. They were both like, let's get the bank. Okay? And then they flipped it on them and they made it about identity. And all of a sudden they started to scrap. And like, I was there, man. I saw this. They did the same thing with the trucker thing. They did the same thing with what they did in the Middle East in 2003. When all of a sudden they had to separate the people that were anti the narrative, anti-establishment. How did they separate them? The Middle East thing happens, boom. You have the Z's come out, the Z's and the J's, and then like this guy, da da da. Now think about that one, man. That was a crazy inversion. All of a sudden, people that were against cancel culture were all of a sudden calling for cancel culture. Jordan Peterson and people like that, right? They're all doing the same thing. It was like, what? Weren't you like against this like 5 minutes ago? Now you're for that? That's kind of weird. And all of a sudden, people that were on the far left were now rooting for people being abused, which we would agree with. And now they just separated that camp. All of a sudden, if you're pro the bagels, the other people, you're like, and then you're like, yeah, me too. I get that. Like, those Z's have done some things. And then they're like, yeah, but the person that you're next to also wants to chop off your ding dong. You know what I mean? That same person was also riding for BLA or BLM. I love BLA, BLM, right? Like, all of a sudden you're like, do I want to like, and all of a sudden it separates the groups. It just, that's a marketing campaign done on purpose. Then you go from all that stuff to what you see now. The new argument for white pill versus black pill is the same inversion, man. Now all of a sudden the people that were like, no, I'm with you that the banking thing don't work. I'm with you that we got to come up with solutions. I'm with you. We got to take care of God, church, family, community. We got to do that. And then you're like, whoa, but your solution has never been a solution. Now, I would agree the person that's like shitting on everything and just saying there's no point in existing, there's no point in doing anything, don't even bother arguing or fighting, just give up, that person's black-pilled, and I think everybody can agree on that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying when I look at the list of people calling out black pill, Really? Because James Corbett knew about this. Like when I heard they're calling him black pill, I'm like, Malaka, James Corbin's been calling out this stuff before you had a clue. I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? Like, you sure about that? This dude is like deep in this stuff, man. And like, there's a long list of that. To me, have the conversation and have a disagreement with James. That's totally cool, man. That's totally normal. I don't think, people should should just agree. You know what I mean? Like, have a conversation with him. Find out why he's saying that's an inversion, right? And then maybe have a healthy conversation. Like when you see a healthy debate occurring. You know what I'm saying? Like some people that get criticized for like bad debates, I've also seen them have really good debates, and people overlook that. And usually when the debates go bad, I'm talking about good people that debate well, that should be debating. They're accused of like bullying someone, but that person's acting like an ass. That same like a good example would be Andrew Wilson. Like I've seen Andrew talk to someone who's not giving him like bullshit and is in good faith having a conversation. He doesn't act like an asshole. Even if the person's saying stuff he doesn't agree with, I don't see him acting like an asshole. I see him acting like an asshole when the person is acting like a jerk or is going into something with not in good faith, right? So the same thing should happen with this, because we are talking about. So to be fair, to end this, there's certain things that are brought up about the new political situations and circumstances around me, not just in the U.S., that are good points. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. That's a fair point. I get that. Like I've heard some good arguments from people that would call me black-pilled. And I'm like, that's a fair point. I didn't think about that. But ultimately, to kind of look at it that way is rather naive. And I think that someone's on the top part of the ignorance thing of the Dunning-Kruger effect. They're not at the bottom here. So I would say that James Corbett, I keep going back to him because like he's a heavy hitter on this stuff, man. Or even Jay Dyer for sure, but he doesn't talk about the political stuff. So I'm kind of leaving him out of that part. And Derek Brose, whether you like him or you don't like him, dude, I know the guy personally. I met him personally. We put an event together. He'll blast you out of the water with like encyclopedic knowledge on the Cyprian royal path. Man, not only do I agree with his point of view, man, the dude built on blockchain. Like, we're not talking about a guy who's speculating here. We're talking about a guy who, when you mention names, he's met them. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So they're like on the Dunning-Kruger, they're like over here, man. They're like on that expert part where their confidence is equal to the person that just got into it, because they can have that conversation. So when in doubt, zoom out. If you doubt what I'm saying, fine. Go look into why some of these people are like bringing up really legitimate questions. Because if you look at the checklist of what both parties or all parties in general want in first world countries, they're the same ultimately. They're the same. They remarketed and rebranded certain buzzwords because after the truckers, they had to change the Greater Reset concepts and ideas, the Great Reset concept and ideas. They had to change terminology like CBDCs and rebrand it. They had to change the types of governance that they want. The Agenda 2030 stuff had to be changed. You know what I mean? If you're back old school into this stuff, like 1990s, early 2000s, we were all talking about Agenda 21. We were all talking about, unseen warfare. I forgot the terminology of that paper, where it describes all this stuff. We're all familiar with that stuff in Technocracy and Technocracy Inc., Elon Musk's grandfather. We're all talking about all that. It's also described in all of those documents. You've heard Jay Dyer break down H.G. Wells on an academic level, that their goal is these things like a global brain. I'm so troubled by like, you really, this makes sense to you? It doesn't make sense. Like if you sit down and you just look at the list, and you just look at like the arguments those guys are giving, it's the same thing as what I was talking about with Hermes. Clearly is a fallen angel, clearly is connected to Lucifer. There's no arguing that. Like I'm back at that. Someone that's deeply immersed in Hermeticism that thinks I know nothing about what I'm talking about, they very well would be right about a lot of the things I don't know about. But the parts that I do know is I can go to the source document, read it. When I read it to them, they can't look at me and say, hey, dude, you know what, man? You don't understand Hermeticism. I'm like, guy, it states it there that he's definitely either the fallen angel or he's God. Like, which one of them is it? And when I describe Hermes, it's clear that when he's referred to as the trickster god, the chances of him being on the good side of things is probably not very high. And it does tie into banking because he's god of the merchants. He's god of wealth. He's god of banking. He's god of like language and casting spells. Like these are not by mistake. He's the messenger god, an angelo. I know I'm repeating myself. Conductor of souls in the afterlife. Guy, who does this sound like? On one side, you have Christ out in the open, speaking to anyone who wants to speak, speaking to anyone that wants to hear. You know what I mean? He's not in secrecy. He even went into the synagogues and did it. He argued with Pharisees. You know what I mean? He openly is telling you what's up. He's not hiding it for no one. He's not asking you for a price to pay, exactly like Buck Johnson pointed out. He's just telling you openly. The other guy wants you to do it in secrecy and cast spells, and is the great, like he's literally a trickster. Like that's the description. So when you pose this in front of someone that believes in Hermeticism and tells you don't understand things and this and that, well, I'm like, but I understand this. Is this incorrect? No. Well, then what does it sound like? Do you want a God that's a trickster God? No. So where does it, when in doubt, zoom out. What's the point? What are they trying to get across? Does it sound like something you want to sign up for? No. So then think about it. Now, do the 7 principles work? Yeah. Can I find the 7 principles and things like that, not called that, but described like that by Orthodox Christians? I absolutely can. Can I describe, like I talked about, read right out of Manly-P. Hall. I read right out of the Nag Hammadi scrolls on the Way of Hermes, and it clearly describes your thoughts become things. It clearly describes it. It describes it literally out of their own source documents that he sat there and he went into a meditative state. And he said, whatever you hold in your mind will happen, will be created. That's literally your law of attraction stuff. Now, can we find that in Orthodox Christianity? We can, but we have like caveats and a totally different understanding of what God is. So you would find it in Thoughts Determine Our Lives, Elder Thaddeus. Many of the things that Elder Thaddeus is describing in that book, I read in many examples of it in occult books and stuff like that. The difference is who God is, what is life, what is death, who are you, not what you are. Who are you? You are made in the likeness and image of God. Your goal isn't to have a happy life and be all like comfortable and stuff like that. It's not about that. It's about theosis and becoming a saint, getting as close as you can to that, repenting along the way as you make your mistakes, and not looking for comfort in this world. Preparing yourself for what comes after. That is my crappy understanding of how this all, and it's a complete inversion of what they're telling you in Hermeticism. When in doubt, zoom out. Now, you're being given this like false sense of comfort, politically speaking. You're totally misunderstanding the enemy. They're all the enemy. So like not one is better than the other in a lot of ways. Do I prefer one over the other? Absolutely. So like someone might get into that stuff, but I'm not looking at these buzzwords as real. I'm looking at them as campaign slogans. I'm looking at them as psyops, actual behavioral psychology, actual nudge theory. Are you awake or are you woke? People don't use those as much anymore because they kind of lost steam. But think about what is the difference between someone that's awake and awoke? They're just on a different side of but they're both extremists and both ways will lead you nowhere. And awake to what? Like this is when I said this at my Anarcho speech, right when I was leaving the Hermetic world and considering myself an anarchist, capitalist of some sort, or an agorist really, and then moving closer to orthodoxy. In that speech, because I was like right at a pivotal time for me, because I was like, I was kind of caught in these two worlds. I talked about awake and woke at a time when it was a lot more relevant than it is now. And I asked people, like, awake to what? When are you awake? Like, do you think you just wake up and like you got everything figured out and now you're awake? Or what about if you keep going through the Dunning-Kruger effect and then you realize how little you do know? And then are you awake then? Or are you awake when you keep studying and you figure things out? Are you still awake then? Or are you ever fully awake? Never. So it's a degree. It's a matter of degree. So even woke and awake doesn't mean anything. To claim yourself as awake or woke is already stupid. Awake to what? What are you awake to? The fact that you don't know shit? Then I'm with you. I'm with you. But then to think that you're awake to knowing how it works out there? Maybe. But are you awake to understanding how you fit into that? You're also in part of the psyop. Like, you're not separate from it. Like, what do you mean you're awake? So now you're outside of the matrix. That's how you view it. You're that simple. Like, it drives me nuts. The same people you think are stupid. I'm talking about really, they've been studying you for this long. They know you so well. They have so many resources. They have complete and utter control of how these things mechanize and work and how to nudge you. Even to when they give you information that you think is like, oh, look, they can't hold the information anymore. We have to like, look at this. I found this thing here. What you do with that information and how much of it is true and fake is the where you figure out the deception part. They're not stupid, dude. Look at your politicians. Does it make sense that they're all freaking cartoon characters and they're all literally like from a bad Monty Python skit? That's not, like, dude, you're living in a Monty Python world. Like, if you think they're that stupid, the people that really control things that you can't name, that they're going to allow for that, come on, man. Now, I'm not saying I'm black-pilled. No, Christ is definitely the way for me, easy. And like, there's no debating that. I don't care what anybody says. Like, they won't be convincing me of that because of my own experiences and because of how stupid I've been in my life and the things I have experienced from the dark side. The dark side has clearly showed me the light. I understand the dark side, unfortunately, in a way I wish I didn't. But when I look at it, I understand the inversion a bit better because I've experienced the dark thing. I wouldn't recommend anyone take my path because it's stupid. Why would you do that when there's an obvious answer to the world? And how do we maneuver in these troubled times? Well, I wouldn't even turn to someone like me or anybody else. I would just turn to Father Seraphim Rose, Saint Paisios, Elder Ephraim, Saint Cosmas Etolos. They're very clear on this stuff. And you want to understand how to govern yourselves and how to work things around there? Let's look at the Sinfonia. How did that work? How does that work? Church and state together. How does that work? How do you create a decentralized system, which is apparently what blockchain is supposed to be, but come on, please, really? Anyways, that's a different story. Then you say, well, what do we do under times of distress? Because we could show, like, the Eastern Roman Empire. And then you're like, well, then we have the Ottoman Empire, 400 years. Well, then orthodoxy continues to flourish in the Russian Empire. And now it moved location. But how did the Orthodox Christians live under Ottoman rule? Like, we've talked about this 100 times. Well, I could tell you from the way that my relatives did so. And it's something that they, outside of like the generation between my grandfather and me, there's been a break there, a passing information, but we still have. It was a common thing for my family, like my family in particular, family tradition, for the old people to sit around telling stories that the old people told them. That was like a part of our like family. Like, I was a big family thing that we would do, and we would gather. Grandparents would tell you what their grandparents told them. And one of the things that trailed through that is how they survived in Cyprus under Ottoman occupation, how they continued to still do so with the Turks when they're still there. And the formula seems to be very basic. It's not easy to apply, but it's basic. It's basic understanding. First of all, understanding the hierarchy: God, family, community. Then you have a group of communities together, you have a healthy nation. Like, that seems to work. And you've heard many way greater podcasters than me say this, and I'm blessed that they exist. I've mentioned many of their names, so go listen to them on that. But like, the reality is, I could tell you how where I think differently, I'm starting to understand that. Like, I don't mean that as a positive or a negative, because in a lot of ways it's negative, in some ways positive. And what I can maybe contribute as to what I'm talking about is I seem to be a little bit more philosophical, zoom out, when in doubt, zoom out, and looking for the simplicity of the original statements made, and then just kind of building off there. I'm not so good at like gathering everything and a drop of the dime names and dates and all that stuff. So I guess it's because I'm a songwriter, and that's how you write a song. I guess that's kind of how so where I'm coming with from that is like, I've seen the experience of Orthodox Christians under Ottoman rule. I had a lot of Serbian friends I grew up with. When I would talk to their grandparents, they would say similar things about how Serbs survived under Ottoman rule under that time. And I also see how Greeks got brainwashed, and how Greeks got to the point where they are now, which is not a good place to be. Okay, modern Greeks are, I don't know what word to use without sounding like I'm fully judging them, but they're walking very far away from Christ. Not all of them. There's a lot of diehard Greeks. Greeks are extremists. Either they're diehard or they're like these people that are an embarrassment. The point is that the way that they survived, even that, because that's a very Greek thing. It's always how they got us historically. They just turned Greek against Greek, because a lot of the problems I've identified, I've seen in my own people. From ego to gathering information so you sound interesting at a dinner table, to thinking, taking claim for everything, even if it's not yours, stubborn, fighting your neighbor, all of that stuff. Very Greek things to do. And you see it historically, with the story of Leonidas, and before the rest of the Greeks left the Spartans alone. They were like betrayed by a shepherd. That happened the same thing in Constantinople. That's how they took Constantinople. I don't know if that's something people are aware of. I guess the point I'm trying to make is they survived by looking at the church, keeping the hierarchy of God, family, community as like your mission. Like you keep those as you strive. That's your reminder every day before you wake, when you wake, when you go to sleep. Like, those are the most important things. With those things, Dutheuta Pramata, in Greek you'd say those are the God's things. They'll give you something in return, and that'll be like a fulfilled life, not in comfort, but in these things. Now, I'm not preaching to you guys. I'm just saying observation of what I saw, and how they did that under Ottoman rule is they all gathered their families and their communities in secrecy. Don't listen to these modern Turks tell you that wasn't the case. Dude, it was butchery, man. I could tell you stories of modern times of things that they've done. It happens in all wars, but some next level stuff here, man. Okay, and then the way that they got through all this stuff was that order: God, family, community. And when the community couldn't be out in the open and obvious, they found ways of doing it in, a smarter way, a way of kind of sticking together. And they grouped themselves around monasteries when they could, because around a monastery, the monks will teach you how to, grow food, pass information that they have in their vast libraries. Some monks are really good, more so in the Balkans, Greece and Serbia, I know specific. They're really good at teaching people this and that. But it's not to say to go run off and do nothing. So how does this fit with modern stuff? Cast your vote, especially if you're an American. I don't know what countries outside of them, outside of Americans and Canadians I'm speaking to. But in Canada, your vote doesn't matter. There's no one that can convince me of that. I've always had that belief from the day that we learned in grade 7 what a governor general was. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. So, but in the U.S., your vote does matter. So I would say that, like, I'm not against someone that said that the way they voted. Like, that's stupid for me to be. That's equally as dumb as those that say, well, don't bother voting at all. Like, I'm like, well, in some cases that makes sense to vote, but don't get caught in the hamster wheel of regurgitating information. Gather information, do whatever, but what you do with it matters. Just like if you're going to gather information about the church, are you doing your praxis? And I'm the first to tell you, I am not. currently. Like I do bits and pieces of it. So I'm not preaching to you that like to do something I'm not doing. I'm just saying that whenever I've done it, things were good and things were not easier, but there was purpose and meaning and connection to something that made me feel great. So if you're gathering all this information and you're not applying it to something, well, then what good is the information? If you're gathering the information on, what political guy did something good for us for now, well, what if you're not doing anything with that? Then it's all gone and it's gone to waste. If you think you're going to participate in this system the way you're told by people that call James Corbett or myself black-pilled, no, dude, that's stupid, because you can't find any evidence, historically speaking, especially 60s onwards, where that's been true. You're not. And the people that know more than you on the subject, that know this on an academic level, can throw quotes at you as well from people that know even more than that person. That, like Quigley, for example, we read it together. Again, shout out to Jay Dyer and James Corbett for putting that in my head early on in the game. They're clearly telling you they're the ones that know how things work. They know how Chatham House rules work. They know how the CFR works. There's a reason why at the CFR you'll have Democrats and Republicans talking there. There's a reason why Hillary called it the mothership where they go to get their instructions. They're telling you in the open, man. They're not hiding nothing from you. But if you think you're going to work in this system because this is the exception, you bought the malakia. You bought the malakia. If you don't believe me, look at the marketing terminology of woke versus awake. Look at the marketed technology of like vax versus anti-vax. Look at the marketing campaign about like racist, like all of those marketing campaigns. How can you identify them when both sides are using the same term, but using them in a different way? That's a marketing campaign. That's behavioral psychology. That's not organic. That's not organic. I saw a brother posting heavily about like, oh, the left is using the same terms over and over again. That's a psyop. The part that person didn't realize is, yeah, but you're using the same words on what you call the right, the same way as the left person is doing that, but you just haven't identified that you're both trapped. Sorry. So anyways, whoa. My intention wasn't to piss anybody off. My intention isn't even to say that I'm right about this stuff. The only thing I know that I'm right about is I can see this. I can smell something fishy, and I could see who's said stuff over the years that makes sense and have been consistently accurate, and I can see the hermetic delusion in a lot of the things I see out there, and I understand the Dunning-Kruger effect, and I can clearly see that's happening out there a lot. Yes, good example, Jason. I just looked in the chance. Make America Great Again versus Build Back Better. Same thing. What are you building? What are you making? Great example, Jason. That's a great oh, Brody, thank you so much, brother, for the love and support. You meant well. You came off spicy. Sorry, guys. I love you. Oh, what did you say? What did man? Anyone know what Brody said that was spicy? I want to see it. Let's see. Okay, now you're in the pocket, Mano. Oh, that was before, back in the day. Personally. Oh, Jason says that. LOL, I don't take it personally, Mano. 2023 was a year of providence. 2024 was a great year of ass kicking. Yeah. I'm not sure what I made reference to there. No, there's nothing to take personally. I don't. You're the guy I was talking about where I like your approach. I like the fact that you ask questions, you try to figure them out. You'll change. You actually made me think about some stuff that I hadn't considered on subjects I thought I knew well. So no, like there's no, if for whatever reason you took, I don't take it personally. It's not even applicable because there was nothing. I use you as a good example for some stuff. Not that I'm even. Well, what else? I don't know what did Brody say? I want to know what he said. I would love the stuff my grandfather knows. Me too. Yeah, and that's the thing is that's why these kinds of like when in doubt zoom out matters, Because things are confusing when you're stuck in the minutia of all the details and the data. They're not very confusing when you zoom out and you look into it, because it would be very difficult for a hermeticist, like, to go back to that, to tell me that this isn't Luciferian. He would either have to say it's Luciferian, or he'd have to say the Orthodox Christian is Luciferian, which I would ask for evidence. Where do you see that? Because there are Gnostics that do view it that way. They view that there's two gods, the Old Testament God and the New Testament God, and they're different gods. And the Gnostic is there's weird things like that. But when you look at what's happening in terms of the goals of technocracy, where technocracy comes from as a philosophy, before that even, who would support such a thing? And it would be names you can name, like Rockefellers and Rothschilds, but it's also names you can't name, which would be part of the Black Venetian, Black nobility, in the merchants of Venice, who also have a connection, a deep connection to Hermeticism. Well, they're the ones that want technocracy, and I don't see it stopping. I see more of it by a lot, not a little bit, by a lot. And the best way to trap someone is not to tell them that it's a trap. When in doubt, zoom out. How do these solutions, or my favorite one that I hear is like, well, yeah, but if we don't do this thing that's going to definitely lead to some disastrous things, someone else is going to do it, right? Like, that's an inversion. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. Actually, I can give historical examples where they said, oh, well, they're going to get on yes, AI, definitely. I'm referring to AI. Its connection to programmable money, its connection to what the phones are and what phones do and how they function. It's also like more conspiratorial stuff that I don't want to break down because I don't know. I don't want to make a claim and then not back it up. But all these things are interconnected together. Exactly. Crypto, electric cars, all of that stuff, all the smart devices. Back in the day, man, like I'm talking about like back in the old school day, like when I had Jamie Hanshaw on and we were talking about back in the old information days. This was open conversation. Whenever you saw the word smart, we were told in 2005, stay away from smart refrigerators and all that stuff. That's going to be all this stuff. All of this stuff is just rebranded in a different way. And if you go back, as I started earlier, and you look at what the intentions of Technocracy Inc. were and are and who's behind them, the plan hasn't changed. The difference is you're rooting for it now. The difference is that people are like, we want that. That thing we didn't want, we want that. We want more of that. We want that. Please give us that. Just the best example is go look at the fact, come on, man. Go look at, you want to talk about rebranding? Just please go look at Technocracy Inc. Forget about the fact that Elon Musk's grandfather is connected to it directly. And a lot of the goals that he wanted to achieve sound really similar. You know? And also Neuralink and all that is very, very clearly described by H.G. Wells, the Theosophical Society, Manly P. Hall, Arthur C. Clarke. Like, there's so many, like, you know, to say, well, if we don't do it first, someone else is going to do it. Well, there's examples in history where they've said that and nobody ended up doing it, because you're never going to make AI. You're never going to make consciousness synthetic. There's no way. What you're going to do is you're going to give up your thinking to it. So therefore it knows before you know. So therefore, how can you question it? It's a total inversion. How can you question AI saying you're going to commit a crime, which is, by the way, in play? They're going to say, well, AI said you're going to commit a crime based on your psychological profile and all the data we've collected and where we've seen you look at this and that. So even if you say that you're not, well, clearly the AI, how do we do that? Well, you've just given it God status. So it's a complete inversion. To say that if we don't create it first, someone else will create it, or if we create it, we have control over it. Who are the people controlling these things? They're not, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, like, I don't understand when you break down their backgrounds. Like, how do you conclude? How do you excuse that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And don't debate with me. I will bring on the other guys and they will smash the shit out of someone that says that that's black-pilled. Like, it's just stupid. Go and look at early Technocracy Inc. when they said, early 1930s, okay, and it even predates that, but let's just go there, where they said that they want Mexico, Canada, the U.S., Greenland, and the Panama all connected. Why is that there, and that's all of a sudden, is it rebranded? Like, if you guys are new to this stuff, go talk to someone like that was into this, the truth or stuff, whatever, in the 90s and 2000s. The first thing on all of our lips were like, we don't want the Amero. The Amero was the version of the euro. I've already repeated this. I'm going to repeat it again because, like, when in doubt, zoom out. We know that the EU was a big scam. Like, that's documented. Nobody denies that anymore. We know that in the 90s, they wanted to do the same thing with the North American agreement. They started it off with NAFTA free trade agreement in the 80s, okay, where they made this agreement between Canada, US, and Mexico, okay. So they wanted to put this a North American Union together, like the EU, and they wanted to continue that throughout the world and have like the 5 boundaries, exactly like in 1984. I have my beliefs and thoughts on Orwell and this and that. They're not exactly like everyone else's, so relax. I'm not. So anyways, that was wanted in the 90s. Nobody wanted it. People fought against that. People went hardcore against that, right up to Occupy Wall Street. They knew that that's what they were trying to do, and they didn't want that. So they rebranded it, and they nudged you to want it now. How? Through humor and bumbling idiots. It's no different than what I read in here from the Hermeticists. This is from their books, pretty much describing Luciferianism. Like, not pretty much, they are. Manly P. Hall, the historian of the occultists, okay? Every new age occult thing of the modern era is based off this, because he catalogs everything that you could think of, even bizarre, weird cults that you've never heard of. They're all here, and they'll tell you, and he tells you flat out that Hermes is connected to Lucifer, and it's satanic. So it drives me nuts. When you're in doubt, zoom out. Who's making these calls behind the World Economic Forum and all these people? They want to stop short on that. Okay, cool. Well, it goes back to the UN. And if you know anything about them, because you clearly do, because you guys are well versed in all this stuff, and you've watched a lot of really great podcasters break this all down, from Jay Dyer to David Patrick Carey to James Corbett to Derek, wherever you got your information from, G. Edward Griffith, wherever you got your information from. When in doubt, zoom out. And if you're looking at this plan, this sounds very much like everything that they've always wanted. And now that we're at the technological advancement where they can get what they want. And then when did they stop talking about digital IDs? When did they stop talking about Identity 2020? When did they stop talking about the known world traveler ID signed by Canada in 2018, which was the beginning of the passport on your phone? When did they stop talking about all these things? When did they start rebranding the Great Reset? When did they start rebranding CBDCs and calling it something else? Look at the token deposits. It's literally a CBDC, but better. Who's backing that? Who wants that in your play? They just rebranded it, guys. It's so simple when you zoom out. The end goal and where you can get your information from is like, dude, does this sound like what Father Seraphim Rose wrote about in detail? From the Survival Guide to nihilism to orthodoxy and the religion of the future. Like, doesn't this, like, it's just right out of there. Like, when I first read Father Seraphim Rose, I mentioned it to Father. I'm like, yo, this guy's like, and I was trying not to be rude. At the time, I was kind of like, I was like, he's straight up saying all the conspiracy stuff, but he's tying it into orthodoxy. It's like straight up like reading things I was reading like most of my life. It's straight up. And he's telling you there's no fooling you there. Revelation, the book of Revelation is literally that. I mean, it describes it to you. It describes the inversion of the anti-hero. The inversion of the anti-hero is literally the antichrist. I'm not calling any of these people antichrist, to be clear. I don't know if they are or not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying when you see an inversion of a hero to anti-hero and they play it back and forth on you, you're being played. When both sides are using the same terminology and have a different meaning, you're being played. Because it is Hermeticism. It is how you manipulate. Like literally, if you understand the 7 principles of Hermeticism, you will see social engineering, the tricks on how they get to social engineer things, like clear as day. It's not even debatable. You can call it out. Like I can call out the principles. Like, oh, they're using a rhythm here. So like there's a description of when to attack, right? And then they use an example of a pendulum. So you have a pendulum here. You take this and you let it go and it starts swinging. Well, where's the best time to hit? Here? Like when the pendulum's on the top? Here, or when it's in the middle? If you want to break a wall object, you take a hammer and you swing it like a pendulum, and on the bottom it has the most force. So if you attack at the wrong moment, or you make a play at the wrong moment, you lose your opportunity to strike. That's right out of the Kabbalion, man. That's straight up there. So you set people up and you're patient. Patience is key. So you think all of these psyops are happening broken as if they're not part of one big psyop, like that somehow they're like different ones. They're not. They're the same. That's why I gave the example of the 60s organic revolution versus the counter revolution. Then I gave the example of like, pick the Occupy Wall Street, the organic version versus making it about your identity, about focusing on what you are, not who you are. Okay, this is always what they're doing, always. And then vax versus anti-vax. This person's like, anti-science. This person's with the science and this and that. That was done on purpose to confuse you so that you get tired and you just get stuck fighting with people. I'm just doing a recap here, guys. Sorry if you've already heard this, or if you're just jumping in, maybe you'll kind of piece it together. They know that the mask works or didn't work. They knew all that stuff. That was not there to like. It was there to create the fight, but most importantly, to keep people in the hamster wheel of just going over on nonsense and then becoming addicted to using this by falsely getting. How many of you got more addicted to this after the COVIDs? And it wasn't because you were doing like whatever stuff. It was because you were looking for information on how to understand the world that you're in, because you just realized that, okay, I've been asleep this whole time and I don't know what's going on in the world, whether it's banking, the medical system, or all that stuff. You're either addicted to looking for information about that, and then you're either, depending on what level you're at, you're coupling that up with arguments to give people as to why they shouldn't wear a mask, why we shouldn't be mandated to do this and that, right? Then it gave you the training to become a dopamine fiend, okay? And all of us, myself included, I've gone like way more on this thing since COVIDs, okay? And it trained us, okay? And then it gives you all this bizarre information that you do nothing with it. I mean, some of us did. We didn't take the thing, or we tried to make better decisions. I'm not saying that there isn't value. I'm just saying overall. And then you became addicted to this, and a hamster wheel you're in. They're doing that again. Instead of calling him like vax and anti-vax, this and that, it's like now it's going to start being black pill versus white pill. I'm telling you, it's bullshit. It doesn't make any sense, because the people that are being called black pilled, you know what they're actually saying? They're saying, okay, yeah, vote, fine. What are you going to do after that? What are you going to do with your family? Okay, you want to complain about the price of eggs? Figure it out. You don't have to run off and then they'll say, oh, you're talking about going into the woods and starting a commune. Nobody is saying that. I'm not saying that. None of these people are saying that. Most of those people live in big cities, guy. They're not telling you that. What I'm saying that they're not saying, other than Cyprian, because he's also Orthodox, is that look at Symphonia as a model, how people survived under Ottoman rule as a model, how Orthodox people are currently surviving in the Middle East, where they're having horrible situations, and how they're handling it, okay, and all that stuff. So that's what I'm saying. So I'm not black-pilled in the sense that I'm telling anyone to run to the forest. I'm in Mexico, man. I saw those kinds of examples. They don't work. I don't believe that they work. Wow, I went off. What's up, Stephanie? It's good to see you in in the house. Hope you're doing well. Punchy's guilty. I'm guilty too. Stevie says, ever notice when your phone screen is not on, it's a black mirror? Yep. Obviously, that's important to understand what obsidian is and why mirrors, which is why I kind of mentioned that in the interview I did with Buck. Mirrors are a key component to the occult because it's an inversion of an image. That's why I was telling Buck, you've never seen your face. I'm not quoting from my song. You like, if you think you've ever seen your face, you haven't. You've either seen a picture of your face or a video of your face. Usually it might even be inverted depending on how the camera was used, or you looked in the mirror and that's an inverted version of you. You've never seen your face. You'll never know that, what you actually look like. So mirrors are constantly used by the occult because A, it's an inversion. B, it's a way that they can conjure up spirits. It takes back to the beginning when I was talking about dream states and all of that stuff and how it's an inversion the way the way they view it versus how we view it. And a scrying mirror is something that was always prevalent in all forms of witchcraft, whether it's looking into the water. Let's think of the story of Narcissist. That was a bit different, but that was about self-ego. But it was always like looking into a crystal ball, a mirror, obsidian. Obsidian is why they call it the black mirror. It's supposed to represent obsidian. And obsidian, especially where I'm at in Mexico, was used very much by the Maya and the Aztecs for this very thing. It does work. It does work. And that's where you get the fairy tale of mirror, mirror on the wall. So when you're looking at this, it's an inversion of reality. And it's a way, even the way that the scrolling system works. I won't get into that because then I'll just get into more psyop stuff. But there's a reason why it scrolls the way it does. And there's a hypnotic, I even did it on Manny. He could tell you he felt like a weird hypnagogic, like it was like, whoa. And maybe we'll do a thing on that. But there's a reason why it scrolls the way it does and how it gets you. Wow, I really went off long time. Who's still here? Stevie's still here. Daniel's still here. Brody's still here. Punchy's still here. Stephanie's still here. Vanny's still here. Who's out? Brody's out. See ya, Brody. Love you, man. Hope you're having a good one. Daniel's not here. He's not here. So I don't know. I'm not sure if we're leaving this up or what we're doing, but how did you guys take what I had to say? I hope people kind of understand what I was trying to get at. I hope I did a good job of explaining it. I don't think I necessarily did. Definitely not shitting on anyone at all. I would shit on some people for sure, but not people. The people I would shit on, everyone would agree with me for shitting on them. See you later, Ivan. It was good to see you, man. Take it easy, brother. Stevie, for now, I appreciate you getting my mind out of my own. Oh, no worries, man. That's definitely a dark place to be, stuck in your own head. Stephanie said, I wish I caught it from the beginning. Vim said, I saw you on Buck's show. I'm here. Well, welcome, Vim. We were talking about I'll leave it posted. I might put it in members or Patreon. So either way, Stephanie, you're there. So you'll get to see it for sure. God bless you, Ivan. I might just leave it up. Who knows? I don't care. This started off because of some of the stuff I talked about on Buck's show, Vim. So definitely a surprise on how many people got something out of that episode, because I thought I was pretty confusing. I think I'm a confusing guy when I talk. I'll be honest. But I don't know. Sometimes it works. Yeah, Vim, this is a really awesome community. I'm not just saying it because you're on our stream. Our chats are like phenomenal. The people that are in this group, that are everyone that's here, plus people that are not here, it's next level. We look for quality conversations, topics, ideas, and thoughts, and a lot of it comes from the community. So, welcome. Hope you stick around. All right, guys. I think I'm good unless anyone has any comment or something to say. I think I'm going to call it a day. I really hope nobody took some of the things I was saying the wrong way. 3 more hours. Did I really go 3 hours? Did I really? Is it 3 hours, Manny? Wow. See, that's got to be ego or something. Like, who can talk like that by themselves? Like, that's not healthy, man. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, these are the questions I asked you. Is it healthy to do this? Like, my opinion really doesn't matter. Like, you know, and I'm not just saying it to be humble. Like, I'm not. I'm just, like, really, like, thinking about this. Like, what is this weird thing that we have in front of us? We just talk about stuff for 3 hours. Guy, I talked for 3 hours. Anyways, I hope everything I said makes sense. I'm not sure about everything. Don't want to give that impression. I do want to say, though, be careful. It's what I remind myself on. Why am I here? Why am I doing what I'm doing? What is my goal with the information I receive? I've received good information from people I strongly disagree with in life. So it's like, what do I do with it? Like, I think that's important. And like, where am I on the Kruger-Dunning curve? Where am I at on that? Like, I remind myself of that. Like, should I be talking about this? Probably, maybe I'm on that ignorant level. I'm not at the point where I realize how little I know about the thing. You know what I mean? It's like that. I'm trying to be careful with like church things I say because I really don't know much. So I would say, I don't know. Just think about some of the ways you get played. Think about why you believe what you believe and who's telling you to believe it. And when in doubt, zoom out. Good way to zoom out is if it's about world affairs and that kind of stuff. Father Seraphim Rose spent a lot of time in that world, and he got a lot of even a basic, like even like a staunch, like hardcore conspiracy theorist that doesn't believe in God. If they were to read Father Seraphim Rose, they'll be like, "Yo, this guy's a conspiracy theorist." I'm not trying to be rude, but that's what they would say. They'd be like, "This is a conspiracy theorist. Take away the God. This is, you know what I mean?" And it's really. So anyways, just before I start repeating things. Buck Johnson, did you just get here? Because he's throwing at North American Union money. Tell me you heard the earlier stuff. The Amero. Oh, are you like, what? Yeah, dude, you remember those days, guy? Buck, you have to remember the Amero days, guy. For show. I think some of the things I said here, Buck, you'd appreciate some. I would appreciate some people's opinions that maybe don't agree with me on some of the takes, the when in doubt, zoom out thing. So, you know, I'm happy to hear it. I'm not basing my, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I don't know at what point you got here, Buck, but some of the things I said here, I was a little bit more candid on some of my opinions of what's happening in global affairs without making it specific. A lot of what, now this is part of just explaining things to Buck. What sprung this stream was a lot of the things I was talking about in the interview we did together, and a lot of the crazy things that happened since that interview. I just see it fits. It fits with a lot of the stuff that I was describing as the trick and the traps of Hermeticism. Anyways. Also, maybe you guys get why I stay out of the political argument stuff too. Anyways, guys, I think that we're calling it a day here. We'll leave this up, I think. I don't know, Manny. Should we leave this up? Yeah, we'll leave it up. We'll leave it up for a bit at least. What is this? Maybe you could have... What? Just got here $2. Like I've been in and out as I went to the store. Oh, no, you don't have to be here. Can you read it up? Read it up? What? Can you read it up? At least... Huh? Oh, leave it up. Leave it up. Yeah. No, it's left up. It's left up. It's gonna be left up. Yeah, I'll leave it up. Stephanie says, "Hey, do you know how the nice man who's called out? Joe Dispenza. Yeah. So Anton, when I had Anton on our on that stream in December, he's been having a rough time. We become kind of like friends back and forth. I'm gonna be reaching out on a personal level soon to him. He's doing well, but I think he's kind of caught in a little bit of like the online Christian battles. I think he's kind of doing it in a semi-healthy way, from what I could see. He's doing okay, I think, to answer your question, Stephanie. He's a good guy. I actually, the episode Buck's putting out on Tuesday, I think, with Father John Whiteford, that's an episode I'm sending him because one of the guys he is friends with, Wes Huff, personal friend, I did a video that was like, what? About the Scofield Bible and some things that are like, what are you talking about? So I'm really looking forward to the interview with Father John and Buck. I'm going to send it to them, and I want to see what they have to say about that, because I do know how Father John does things, and he's a hard guy to refute. He's well-versed, well-spoken, quite intelligent, and he puts things in a way that... I really appreciate, because it's hard to wiggle out. You know what I mean? It's hard to wiggle out. So I really want to see how he deals with that. So to connect that back to Anton, I want to send it to Anton and hopefully to a few of Protestants that are in his circle to see what they have to say, because clearly what was said about the Scofield Bible, I vehemently disagree with. I know Buck does too, and Father John. I'm new to some of that weird stuff because I wasn't raised in those circles of rapture. I remember first hearing about it. It was weird. Scofield Bible stuff was weird. I don't know. It's just a bizarre belief system. It's so weird, man. Anyways, guys, I hope this all made sense. If you disagree with something, definitely happy to hear about it. Yeah, or if you had any other kinds of questions, I think I'm just going to leave it at that. Catch you guys tomorrow for SOS Radio. Should be an interesting one. Got a few things planned. I'll reply right away. Please do. Just for those people that, I'll say this as the last thing. For those people that want to take what I said out of context, let me just say this one last thing and I'll go. I know we live at a time where it's hard to have hope for some people. Even if you are a practicing Eastern Orthodox person, I know things are confusing and stuff like that for sure. I'm just saying it's done by design. Hero and anti-hero is done by design. But it is really weird out there to kind of filter through all the information and what's going out there. I just say one thing I do for myself to kind of keep myself calm and chill is when in doubt, I zoom out. I just try to simplify and see what's the ultimate goal happening here? Like what's going on? So what I'm getting at is if someone's going to take some of the things I said out of context in terms of the technocratic stuff, Technocracy Inc., which I didn't go into detail. I'm happy to some way down the road, but I don't know if I wanted to keep doing streams like this. I'm more than happy to send you material and conversations and lectures from people that know about the subject way better than I do. They're very difficult to debate and argue their points. When in doubt, zoom out. If you see something out there, can you see a pattern of like, where's there another? I don't want to get specific. The point is, I understand things are tough. The last couple of years have been extra tough. People are fed up with stupid ideologies. I'm fed up 100% too. Come on, for God's sakes, if you saw my interview with Jason, you saw what life was like at a woke company. You could just imagine when I saw it on, front page news, all the same stuff that I was dealing with Lush. Obviously, I'm going to have a problem with it. I see it. I'm tired of that. Everyone's tired of that. Everyone's tired of like bullshit options. Everyone's tired of like being lied to. Everyone's tired of like not knowing where to look, to who to listen to, how to understand things, how to interpret things. Everyone's tired of arguing to some level. Some people are addicted to arguing. You know what I mean? Like this, people are addicted to consuming data, getting like, again, back to the conversation with Buck, devil's in the details, God's in the details, that thing, getting stuck in the trap, engaging with nonsense for the sake of nonsense. Like, look, man, don't argue with someone that doesn't believe that there's a difference between a man and a woman. Like, you're not going to get anywhere. You know what I mean? So, I get all this stuff. I feel a lot of it too. But right now is when they want you the most tired, the most confused, and the most hopium. They need you to be on hopium. If you're just catching my tail end of stuff, I know it's a 3-hour stream. Go back and hear some of the things I'm bringing up. These are intended. They're not by mistake. You don't have clown show politicians by mistake because somehow they made it through the cracks. That's not the case. These are all intended. This is all for real. But what I'm getting at is, don't misunderstand me. I understand that sometimes we have to make certain decisions. I understand that if someone's saying something we agree with at the moment and it benefits our society, like, for example, shutting up people that are saying woke stuff, I'm for it. If you have a politician now that's calling these things out, good. I'm not saying that you should discount it. I'm just saying, when in doubt, zoom out, figure out where the devil is, figure out where God is in this, figure out that there's a connection, a direct connection, correlation to what you see in Genesis and Garden of Eden, and you see in the formation of a lot of these institutes and the people behind a lot of these thinking and philosophy. They're all the same. You can all take it back to God and the devil. And a lot of the things I'm describing, or even things that are described with the technocratic system moving forward, is very much what Father Seraphim Rose was talking about. Like, that's another thing I'm confused about. So, but I do understand that all of these things are exhausting, and people are tired of it. People want to get revenge for some of the stuff that happened. I get that. Believe me, I left my family and everybody in Canada because of a lot of these things. Believe me, there's a part of me that wants to be like, I told you so. There's a bunch of people that I want to shove like articles in their face and say, look what you made me do that, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I just try to remind myself the Hermeticist traps that they set in front of us. What's the point? When in doubt, zoom out. Take the good things that are happening around you and, be happy for them, like politically speaking, economically, all that stuff. But just know that the ultimate goal is not going to be solved in that prison, because that's not what it was designed for. And the other trap is, don't run into the woods by yourself and just, be a black pilled person in that way. And please go back and listen to that part for anyone that didn't catch it. That black pill, white pill argument that's going on out there is just stupid. It's intentionally marketed towards people to not think, and it's just dumb. It's dumb. And in fact, what's described as the black pill isn't the black pill. It's total inversion. It's total ridiculousness. And I would go to the people that have been calling this stuff for 20, 30 years for my evidence, and I would show you they have a better breakdown of this. Anyways, guys, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for listening to me jabber. I do believe that I'm sure people are saying God pill or whatever. For me, the solution is very simple. I clearly see it in our faith. Clearly see it in our church. And I clearly see how we have a 2,000-year blueprint on what to do and how to do it. I'm that pill, whatever that is. Whatever that is, that's where I'm at. And I guess I would just say it's been a weird week, for sure, since that conversation with Buck. I don't know if I want to say necessarily the great deceiver's after me, but it sure feels like that. So we are in Lent. We have a couple more weeks to go. We're headed to Texas this week, so wish us well. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Love you guys. If I'm wrong about anything, I'm happy to hear about it. If I need to consider something, I'm happy to consider it. Yeah, I would look at other. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. God bless you guys. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow. Adios.